Chapter 648. Li Tianlan had watched the video of Eastern Europe's last moments countless times. The sword light, like a meteor, seemed to fly over from the sky. The sky and the night intersected, eternal and instantaneous reincarnation. That sword tore the sky and flattened the earth, with unparalleled glory, almost eternal glory. That was the strongest sword move of the Chosen One, and it was perfectly replicated that night. Li Tianlan understood the sword formation of the 13-story building, but he could not figure out the essence of that sword move. He could understand it, but he could not imagine what kind of sword move it was. Until today. Until now. He broke out like never before, and countless unique skills intersected with each other. In the sky full of sword energy, he let go of his hand and faced the knife light. The sword energy was like a meteor, penetrating everything in the world. He did not know what kind of sword move it would be, but there was no doubt that it was the peak he could reach at present. He used all his strength, regardless of everything, and went all out without hesitation. At this moment, Li Tianlan stood at the highest point, but suddenly found that this sword move had already existed. What was this feeling? Li Tianlan was silent for a long time. At this moment, his thoughts were extremely complicated. He could feel the sword intent of his sword move. Compared with the eternal sword move in Eastern Europe, it was not similar at all. It was the same. It was exactly the same sword move. The only difference was that sword move was much more perfect than his. His sword move was just a prototype after all, but the foundation that supported the burst of sword light was exactly the same. Li Tianlan couldn't even find the slightest difference between them. The huge blade of Xianyuan Feng seemed to be trembling slightly with excitement. This was the first magic weapon in the world, but at this time, it clearly expressed its joy and docility to Li Tianlan. This was a sword with emotions, but from beginning to end, it did not show any resistance to Li Tianlan. It was an eager closeness. As if the joy of reunion after a long separation. Docile and well-behaved. Holding the huge sword in his hand, Li Tianlan even thought that Xianyuan Feng was a part of his body. There was no doubt whose sword it was. But where did its feelings for him come from? Li Tianlan was as still as a statue. The pitch-black blade shone with a majestic luster as it pierced into DK's chest. The black sword was too wide and too big. The sword pierced through DK's body, extending from his neck all the way to his abdomen. His old body seemed to be hanging on the blade of the sword, on the verge of collapse. Li Tianlan came to his senses and looked into DK's eyes. He suppressed the countless emotions in his heart. In front of him was victory. This was the strongest opponent he had ever killed single-handedly since he entered the world. But he used a sword light like that. He didn't even know if it was his sword or Dongqing Huangtu's. I won. He said in a hoarse voice. DK looked at him. His eyes, which were still filled with the last bit of vitality, were a little dazed. His domain was on the verge of collapse, and in the end, it completely shattered. The sparkling and translucent ray of light fell from the sky. Li Tianlan extended his hand. A crystal-like radiance fell into his hand. At this moment, in the eyes of all the members of the Jiang clan, Li Tianlan stood in the air, defeated the heaven saber, and took the amber. DK chuckled and said with difficulty, "Do it." He understood what Li Tianlan meant, but he was powerless to stop it. Qian Qiu was his last move, which burned his life and potential. At his age, it was enough to drain all his strength and break his body in an instant. This was the best result. He didn't know if Qian Qiu could kill Li Tianlan. But he was doomed to die, and it was his own unique skill that killed him. Li Tianlan didn't defeat him, but he was defeated by the constant passage of time. But Li Tianlan's sword was too fast. The sword light shattered Qian Qiu's blade light and penetrated his body. The sharp sword energy was as sticky as water, tightly sealing his body that was about to collapse. So he was still alive today. Li Tianlan wanted to kill him in front of all the members of the Jiang clan, destroy the belief of the Jiang clan for decades, and take away the belief of the Jiang clan for hundreds of years. After this day, everyone knew that DK had been defeated by Li Tianlan. It was not as they had planned, that DK had broken his own body. You're a good opponent. Li Tianlan's calm voice spread to every corner of the island. I will remember your blade, and remember this Qianqiu. Xian Yuanfeng suddenly pulled out of DK's chest. Li Tianlan's voice was calm and almost cold. Go well. He waved his sword and cut through the sky. Old ancestor. No. Don't. The dark blade cut through the wind. DK struggled to raise his head, looking at the long sword that ended his life, his eyes calm and peaceful. The black sword light suddenly soared, sweeping across with incomparable coldness and cruelty. Bang! The blade light all over the sky exploded for the last time. Blood gushed up to the sky. DK's head kept rising with the blood. His head was rising. His body fell directly into the Kanglan Lake below. Jiang Tongye, the patriarch of the Jiang clan, rushed into the lake like a madman and caught DK's body with trembling hands. In the other direction, Jiang Tonghui rushed up to the sky to catch DK's head. Everyone was staring at Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan was already covered in blood. His face was extremely pale. DK's outburst undoubtedly caused unimaginable serious injury to Li Tianlan. A faintly discernible but extremely wild and gloomy atmosphere continued to spread on the island. Several experts of the Jiang clan took a step forward subconsciously. Li Tianlan's figure slowly landed on the ground. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The quiet waves of the Kanglan Lake were extremely pleasant. A layer of misty white mist gradually gushed out from the shore of the lake. The white mist spread quietly and shrouded Li Tianlan's body. Jiang Tongye walked out of the lake step by step, holding DK's body. His eyes were red, but he was still calm. More and more elites of the Jiang clan came over. Everyone was looking at the white mist. The white mist surged lazily, spreading more and more, covering the elites of the Jiang clan and an area of hundreds of meters. Jiang Tonghui frowned and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, get out." In the sound of footsteps, the elites of the Jiang clan began to retreat, but they still surrounded Li Tianlan intentionally or unintentionally. Jiang Tongye looked at the white mist in front of him and said nothing. The white mist suddenly came and began to slowly recede. Light footsteps sounded from the mist. It was neither fast nor slow. Li Tianlan slowly walked out of the area shrouded by the mist. The wounds all over his body had almost completely healed, and a few of the deeper wounds were also recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. His face had become ruddy, and his aura had once again become powerful, calm, and indifferent. The corner of Jiang Tongye's mouth moved, and his heart fell to the bottom in an instant. He was sure that Li Tianlan's internal injuries had not recovered. But now the visible healing speed of the wounds was enough to show that Li Tianlan's recovery ability was abnormal. His external injuries were almost healed, but who knew how much his internal injuries had recovered? The amber sword was hidden in the nothingness. Li Tianlan looked at the countless elites of the Jiang clan surrounding him, raised his eyebrows, and chuckled. His voice was calm. Do you want to die? The dragon vein is indeed on you. In the faint voice, Summer Solstice separated the crowd. She looked at Li Tianlan with a complicated look in her eyes. Li Tianlan looked at Summer Solstice. Are you afraid? I'm scared to death. Summer Solstice chuckled. She looked at the crowd around her and whispered, You have an agreement with the old master. Now that the old master is dead and you have the amber, do you still want to kill people here? Li Tianlan was silent for a while and looked at the crowd around him. His fingers gently touched the air around him. The silent and illusory sword light suddenly lit up for a moment. An extremely sharp sword energy rose into the air and flew directly to the center of the island. The delicate small sword kept growing in the air and finally landed in front of the flagpole in the center of the island. That was the void sword of the 13th floor. Without sword energy lingering around, the quiet sword of the void was like a faintly discernible shadow. The void suppressing the Kanglan. Li Tianlan looked at the direction where the sword energy fell. His eyes stopped on Jiang Tongye and Jiang Tonghui for a moment, and he said calmly, I will give the Jiang clan a chance to join Emperor Dong's palace, but not today. Before Wang Tianzong reappears, you should think it through, tell the void, and then take it to Tiannan to find me. No one from the Jiang clan spoke. Everyone was looking at Li Tianlan quietly. Summer Solstice narrowed her eyes slightly and sneered, Your Highness, you are so bold. But you don't seem to have thought about what will happen when Tianzong comes back. I will wait for him. Li Tianlan said calmly, When he reappears, I will come to Beihai again and get my sword back. In the uproar, Li Tianlan's voice was extremely clear. This was different from the beer. This was his declaration in front of the hostess of the Wang family of Beihai. When the Sword Emperor reappeared, he would come to Beihai again and get his sword back. He would come to Beihai again and fight with the Sword Emperor. A sharp light suddenly flashed in Summer Solstice's eyes. She didn't know how long it would take for Wang Tianzong to recover from his injury. But from Li Tianlan's voice, she heard unquestionable confidence. This was a kind of momentum, the invincible momentum that belonged to Li Tianlan. Summer Solstice slowly turned around and looked at the north of Beihai province across the Kanglin River. If they went further north, they would get closer to Mount Dibbing with every step. She was silent for a long time and then said calmly, We can talk. We've talked about everything that needs to be talked about. Li Tianlan said blandly, Hand over all the devil troop and publicly apologize to the Snowdance Corps and the Dongqing clan. Summer Solstice looked at Li Tianlan. Is there no other way? No. Li Tianlan answered without hesitation. This was the bottom line. There was no other way. Summer Solstice was silent for a while. After returning to Mount Dibbing, Wang Yuetong didn't cry or make a fuss, but she didn't say much to him. She just shook her head at Summer Solstice and then locked herself in the room without seeing anyone. Now she knew Li Tianlan's request. This was a request that the Wang family of Beihai couldn't agree to. Summer Solstice slowly turned around and walked to the boat on the shore. She said coldly, I'll wait for you at Mount Dibbing. Li Tianlan didn't respond, and he didn't need to respond. Huangfu Qiushui looked at Li Tianlan and bit her lip. No one knew what she was thinking in her heart. But with Summer Solstice's departure, she could only leave. Huangfu Qiushui held her small hand, turned around hesitantly, and walked to Summer Solstice. Li Tianlan didn't move or speak. Huangfu Qiushui moved little by little to Summer Solstice. Countless complex emotions were intertwined in her heart. She turned her head subconsciously and looked at Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan was still standing there. Across the Kanglin River, he looked at the far north. He was extremely lonely. Some people say that Tianlan is the reincarnation of Huangtu. This is impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible. I had gastroenteritis and had diarrhea all day. I was in a trance when writing this chapter. Chapter 649. The boat docked at the northern shore of the Tsanglan River. When Summer Solstice led Huangfu Qiushui to the shore, the mighty line of motorcade had been waiting quietly in the wind and rain for a long time. Xia Ji didn't say anything more. She walked softly into the Rolls-Royce in the middle of the motorcade. She leaned against the soft back of the chair and was silent for a long time before she said softly, Drive. The convoy slowly moved forward. The moment they left the Kanglin River, Huangfu Qiushui, who had been silent the entire way, quietly turned her head and looked at the small island in the middle of the river. The island became a little blurry in the wind and rain. The people who stood by the shore and looked to the north were even more blurry. Farther and farther away. The beautiful girl who had been trying her best to remain calm suddenly felt empty in her heart. An obvious and unfamiliar emotion attacked her will. She finally couldn't help but pucker up her small mouth and was about to cry. Farther and farther away from him. He was getting further and further away from her eyes. She didn't know if it was because she couldn't bear to part with him or the sword, but she just couldn't bear to part with him. Autumn water has grown up. Xia Zhi gently touched Huangfu Qiushui's head and smiled. You have a sweetheart, and you blame me for pulling you away. No. Huangfu Qiushui shook her head in panic. Not my sweetheart. My sword. I'll get it back one day. Summer Solstice said softly, we are in the general trend, and no one can sing all the way. The Wang family of Beihai hasn't encountered setbacks for so many years that everyone thinks it's abnormal for us to have setbacks. In fact, it's the most abnormal to have such an idea. Li Tianlan is indeed shining brightly now, but everyone will have a low point. You will get your limelight back. Huangfu Qiushui bit her lip and did not speak. Lights kept flashing in her mind, one after another. They were all magnificent sword lights. They were Li Tianlan's sword lights. She likes swords. I like autumn water. She didn't know Li Tianlan. But she was infatuated with his sword light. Right now, the convoy headed north, getting further and further away from him. His footsteps might also go all the way to the north, and she would see him on Mount Dibbing. But in the end, the short time they spent together was gone forever. Huangfu Qiushui thought in a daze. She reached out her hand and subconsciously touched her face. Her face was soft, fair, clean, and exquisite like warm jade. Somehow, she thought of the time when Li Tianlan's feet rubbed against her face. Huangfu Qiushui's body trembled slightly. Her face was rosy, and she looked even more charming and beautiful. Summer Solstice quietly looked at Huangfu Qiushui's gradually misty eyes and sighed softly. Whether it was the person who liked Li Tianlan or his sword, it was all Li Tianlan. Huangfu Qiushui might not understand this feeling now, but as someone who had been through it, how could Xia Zhi not understand Huangfu Qiushui's thoughts? She actually didn't mind that Huangfu Qiushui's heart belonged to someone else. He did not mind that his daughter Wang Yuetong was deeply in love with Li Tianlan. In the boundless secular world, there were too many complicated feelings that needed to be entangled for a lifetime. For example, back then, the old patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai had almost destroyed her entire family. Her father had been transformed into a demon army. From Summer Solstice's personal standpoint, she naturally had reasons to hate Beihai. But from the standpoint of the hostess of the Wang family of Beihai, it was hard for her to say that what the Wang family of Beihai did back then was wrong. She hated Wang Tianzong's father, but she married Wang Tianzong willingly. Most of the time, Summer Solstice was glad. Glad that she could still see clearly with hatred and chose the man she loved the most and loved her the most. So she never blamed Wang Yuetong, nor did she blame the current Huangfu Qiushui. She was just a little worried that their choices were wrong. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. But Li Tianlan, Summer Solstice thought of everything today and smiled slightly bitterly. The man who killed the Heaven Saber at the age of 22. This could no longer be described as brilliant. This was truly unparalleled. Wang Yuetong, Huangfu Qiushui, Dongqing Rushi, even Qin Weibai. So what if they were more ambitious than the sky? In the face of the current Li Tianlan, it was normal for young and proud women to be tempted. On the contrary, it was the most abnormal for them not to be tempted. She reached out and patted Huangfu Qiushui's head gently. Sleep for a while. Huangfu Qiushui shook her head and did not speak. Summer Solstice did not say much either. She leaned against the car and closed her eyes to rest, but a smile gradually appeared on the corner of her mouth. She was sorry that Heaven Saber DK died in battle. But that was his own choice. After all, she did not come to Kanglan City empty-handed this time. Because she saw the 13th floor. It was not the flawless, powerful, invincible, and eternal sword light in Eastern Europe. It was the sword of the Chosen One, which had just taken shape, but had too much to make up for. The gorgeous but still somewhat immature invincible sword light kept replaying in her mind. She still didn't know who Dongqing Huangtu was. But she had a vague way to help Wang Tianzong. When Beihai was in turmoil, the general trend of Eastern Europe had fallen to the last trace of aftermath. The negotiation, which was neither long nor short, finally ended. In the face of the coercion and temptation of countless countries, Snow Country, which had shown a tough attitude from the beginning, did not change its initial position in the end. The Border Control Corps was still stationed in Snow Country. But in the chaos, Snow Country still refused the olive branch of Zhongzhou state under great pressure. They chose the Wang family of Beihai. An hour before Jiang Shangyu, the vice-marshal of the Snowdance Corps in Wulan State, got the news, the Prime Minister of Snow Country had officially signed an agreement with Wang Xingxiao, the heir of the Wang family of Beihai. The signing place of the agreement was in Feiniao City. Most of the contents of this Flying Bird agreement were confidential, but just a few leaked contents were enough to make people sigh with emotion. In the cold and gloomy temperature of Wulan State, Jiang Shangyu put down the document in his hand, shook his head, and said with a chuckle, "Beihai has made a lot of money this time." What did His Majesty say? In the empty office, the voice of Lushing Sangquan, the master of Jifeng Sword Training School in East Island, came from the phone in front of Jiang Shangyu. Jifeng Sword Training School had suffered heavy losses in Eastern Europe, and nearly half of its elites had died in Mormons. But at the last moment, Jiang Shangyu kept Lushing Sangquan, which could be regarded as saving his life. Now, although Lushing Sangquan was still injured, he could be said to be one of the few invincible realm experts in the entire dark world who could maintain their peak state. There is no explanation. Jiang Shangyu said blandly, "At this point, as long as Snow Country is not stupid, it must be determined to cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai. At present, although the requirements of the Wang family of Beihai are extremely harsh, Snow Country can agree, which certainly means that the compensation given by the Wang family of Beihai is not small. Both sides can barely be regarded as a win-win situation. At least during this period, the relationship between Beihai and Snow Country will not be destroyed. One less Wang Tianzong, and one Snow Country," Lushing Sangquan pondered for a moment. "To be exact, it's not less, but it's less for the time being." Jiang Shangyu said calmly, "The teacher has evaluated that sword light. That sword light is really strong, but Wang Tianzong will be seriously injured at most. He will not die. At most, he will take a longer time to recuperate. For a person like him, as long as he is not dead, few people dare to really fight with the Wang family of Beihai. Exchanging Snow Country with serious injuries, the gains of the Wang family of Beihai in Eastern Europe are simply unimaginable. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. No matter how big their gains are, they may not have time to digest it." Lushing Sangquan suddenly laughed in a low voice. "It's true that few people dare to fight against the Wang family of Beihai. But it doesn't mean that there is no one. Li Tianlan has defeated Autumn Water and Heaven Reaching. If the intelligence is correct, he should have arrived at Kanglan now. This time, the Wang family of Beihai really lost face, and this will even be the beginning of their decline." Jiang Shangyu was silent for a while and finally opened a video. The video was divided into two parts. The first part was extremely blurred. It was the scene of Li Tianlan on the Lingtai mountain. But because the distance was too far, only some blurred sword light could be seen in the video. However, the second part was much clearer. It was not because of the close distance. It was because the sword light in the second video was too dazzling, and Li Tianlan's voice also shook heaven and earth. A sword cut a mountain. Jiang Shangyu watched the two videos for a long time. "Now Li Tianlan," he sighed softly and whispered, "he is really strong." "How is he compared with you?" Lushing Sangquan suddenly asked. Jiang Shangyu was quiet for a moment, as if he was thinking about whether Lushing Sangquan was trustworthy or measuring his own strength. After a long time, he slowly said, "If he doesn't have Xianyuan Feng with him, I should not be afraid of him. I can't beat him, but I can't lose either." Lushing Sangquan didn't speak for a long time. He seemed to be in absolute shock. Jiang Shangyu was never arrogant. He wouldn't talk big. The two videos were enough to measure Li Tianlan's current strength. It was the power that even an invincible realm expert had to be afraid of. But Jiang Shangyu said that he could compete with Li Tianlan without the sword formation. What did that mean? Lu Sheng Tsangquan's voice trembled slightly. Then, can we start our plan? He was still in his peak state, and there was Jiang Shangyu. Their plan had begun to mature. Wait a little longer. Jiang Shangyu's tone was calm. Wait for what? Lu Sheng Tsangquan's tone was a little aggressive, but more than that, he couldn't wait. When he becomes strong, we won't have a chance. We don't have to wait so long. Jiang Shangyu laughed. I'm waiting for him to break through Beihai province. He paused and continued, if he can really break through, only in this way can we accurately measure Li Tianlan's current strength. Lu Sheng Tsangquan didn't speak for a long time. Jiang Shangyu wanted to comfort him, but Lu Sheng Tsangquan suddenly said, let me show you a video. The Battle of Kanglan Island has come to an end. He paused and said with great difficulty, DK has died. Jiang Shangyu's body suddenly shook, and he accepted the video immediately. This video was too short, but it was incomparably gorgeous. The saber light all over the sky. The eternal sword. It was just a few seconds, but it had explained everything. Jiang Shangyu's body stiffened in place. He looked at the video and was silent for a long time. How is it? Lu Sheng Tsangquan asked in a low voice. Jiang Shangyu didn't speak. He sat in the chair, and his eyes were a little lost. The eternal sword. The 13th floor, he laughed at himself. From the first time he saw this sword light, he had been sure that this era was destined to be ruled by this sword light. It would rule for a long time. He took a deep breath and said calmly, the plan should be adjusted. End of this chapter, bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 650. The thick documents were divided into dozens of copies and placed on the huge and luxurious desk, like a hill. From Beihai to Snow Country, Wang Xingshao, who had become thinner in a short time, was almost drowned by the pile of documents. 2 hours ago, the Flying Bird Agreement was officially signed in Fanio City, less than 200 miles away from Snow Country. It also meant that the catastrophe that swept the entire Dark World had officially ended. The Li family and the Wang family of Beihai had become the biggest winners in this chaos. The Li family would completely control the 5 countries in Eastern Europe. And the Wang family of Beihai would completely control Snow Country from today on. The dozens of documents in front of him covered the military, politics, wealthy families, and major industries. Almost everything in Snow Country was in the Flying Bird Agreement. Although Snow Country and the Wang family of Beihai were determined to cooperate, the negotiation was extremely difficult from the beginning. Wang Xingshao appeared on such an important occasion for the first time. He told himself countless times that every condition in this negotiation was related to the future of the Wang family of Beihai. Therefore, Snow Country and the Wang family of Beihai had been haggling over every bit of interest at the negotiating table in recent days. After giving countless substantial promises, the Wang family of Beihai finally got the Flying Bird Agreement and Snow Country. This country could accommodate the Violet family and the Morton family. In 20 years at most, as long as the Wang family of Beihai did not make any mistakes in decision-making, their strength in all aspects would increase exponentially after absorbing the interests of Snow Country. Wang Xingshao looked through the documents of the Flying Bird Agreement one by one. The sun outside the window rose to the sky and gradually fell. The sun was setting. Dusk was approaching. In the gradually dimming room, Wang Xingshao put down the last document in his hand, leaned against the chair behind him, and closed his eyes. Exhaustion came over him like a tide. His breathing gradually became even, and he seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. The door of the room was pushed open. Wang Xiaoyao, who had been in Eastern Europe for a few days, walked in with a food box in his hand. Wang Xingshao, who seemed to be asleep, opened his eyes and looked at Wang Xiaoyao quietly. Why don't you go to eat? Wang Xiaoyao put the food box on the table, glanced at the documents piled up on the table, and chuckled. Don't worry, there won't be any problems. You are too cautious. Some mistakes can't be made even once. Wang Xingxiao looked at the dark sky outside the window and said softly. Wang Xiaoyao was silent for a while and patted the food box. Eat it while it's hot. It's all your favorite food. They were now in Fanio City. It would also become the headquarters of the Wang family of Beihai in Snow Country in the future. Fanio City was not a big city in Snow Country, nor was it rich in resources, but it was the real hinterland of Snow Country. Less than 200 miles away from Fanio City was the dock that Snow Country had allocated to the Wang family of Beihai. The dock would last for 200 years, and the Beihai Corps could station more than 30,000 elite Navy soldiers at the dock. After leaving the pier and heading south, they arrived at the North Sea province. The bird flew all the way to the west. It was a perfectly straight road. The capital of the Snow Country was less than 200 miles away. Snow Country was really sincere. It was equivalent to handing over its lifeline to the Wang family of Beihai. Wang Xingxiao's mind was full of the contents of the Fanio Agreement and the Wang family of Beihai's plan to expand the Beihai Corps. Mount Dibing established the Beihai Corps by itself, which nominally belonged to Zhongzhou State. If it wanted to expand, it naturally had to report to the army headquarters of Zhongzhou State. It was self-evident what attitude Dongqing Wudi, who had gradually stabilized his position in the army headquarters, would have on this matter. It was destined to be another fierce struggle. But now, when his father had not recovered from his injury, the people of the Southeast Group were uncertain. In addition, Wang Jinglei's attitude was ambiguous. Their overall combat capability might not be much stronger than that of the giant group that had gradually united. He rubbed his forehead with a headache and said with a wry smile, I can't eat. I have no appetite. What? Are you afraid that I'll poison you? Wang Xiaoyao joked. His smile was charming. Wang Xingxiao was stunned and couldn't help laughing. He reached out and opened the food box. Looking at the carefully prepared side dishes and light porridge, he nodded and said, Thank you. Wang Xiaoyao waved his hand, casually sorted out the materials on the table, and sat down opposite Wang Xingxiao. We will set up a new corps in Snow Country. It will be regarded as a branch of the Beihai Corps, but it will be renamed. Who do you have in mind for the commander of the corps? Uncle Wang of the Shadow Sting Army can do it. Wang Xingxiao thought for a while eating and said, and we can ask him to bring a group of elites from the Shadow Sting Army. The Shadow Sting Army was the largest special forces in Zhongzhou State. Commander Wang Zhaoyang could also be said to be the top expert in Zhongzhou State. The Wang family of Beihai establishing a new corps in Snow Country was naturally an important force to deter or ensure the happy cooperation between Snow Country and the Wang family of Beihai. It could even be said to be the core force. It was no exaggeration to say that if the Wang family of Beihai really split in the future, whoever could control this new corps could get everything of the Wang family of Beihai in Snow Country. Wang Zhaoyang was very good to Wang Xingxiao and was also deeply trusted by Wang Tianzong. He was the first candidate that came to Wang Xingxiao's mind. Wen Cheng is also good. Wang Xiaoyao was silent for a while and looked at Wang Xingxiao. His eyes were calm. He will not be worse than Zhao Yang. And the position of the Shadow Sting Army is very delicate. It's better not to move. Zhao Yang can control the situation there. Wang Xingxiao raised his head and looked at Wang Xiaoyao. His eyes were very warm, but there were other emotions behind the warmth. He smiled slightly and said with some mockery, Second uncle, you can't wait? Wang Wencheng was a high-level member of the Beihai Corps. It could be said that he was Wang Tianzong's man. But such a division only meant that he was not close to Wang Qinglei. In fact, this high-level member of the Beihai Corps was Wang Xiaoyao's real confidant. Wang Xiaoyao entered the invincible realm, but he was transferred away from Mount Dibing when the enemy was in front of him. Many people in the Beihai Corps sensed something unusual. In just a few days, Wang Wencheng's situation had become difficult. Wang Xiaoyao wanted to control Snow Country, so he naturally wanted his confidant to come here and take charge. I entered the invincible realm. With a smile, Wang Xiaoyao said something that seemed irrelevant. Wang Xingxiao looked down at the porridge in front of him. His eyes were a little dazed. After a long silence, he slowly opened his mouth and said calmly, "It's all up to you, second uncle." "Then, Wenqing?" Wang Xiaoyao said with a smile. Wang Xingxiao nodded. "Who do you have in mind for the deputy commander and deputy commander of the corps?" Wang Xiaoyao asked. Wang Xingxiao drank the porridge and said in a lukewarm tone, "Second uncle, just look for someone." Wang Xiaoyao nodded without hesitation and said with a smile, "Okay." The porridge was finished. Wang Xingxiao took a bite of the side dish and picked up the document again. It was clear that he wanted to see the guest off. Wang Xiaoyao didn't leave. He took out his mobile phone from his pocket and put it in front of Wang Xingxiao. He whispered, "The news has been sent to me at noon, but I haven't given it to you. Old Master DK has died. Li Tianlan has now surpassed Kanglin realm. This is the video before the old master died." Wang Xingxiao's body suddenly shook, and the magnitude was extremely obvious. Wang Xiaoyao pushed the mobile phone over. Wang Xingxiao looked at the mobile phone quietly. The strongest enemy in his life on the mobile phone had traveled half of Beihai. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow, he would arrive at Mount Dibing. He looked at the mobile phone quietly and was silent for a long time. Wang Xiaoyao looked at him quietly, without any expression. After a long time, Wang Xingxiao reached out his hand and pressed the mobile phone. Countless sword intents bloomed in his hand. The whole mobile phone was twisted and shattered in his hand, turning into a piece of debris. Wang Xiaoyao raised his eyebrows slightly. "I won't go back." Wang Xingxiao said in a low voice, "So, it's better not to watch it." Wang Xingxiao still didn't speak. He seemed to be explaining or convincing himself. Wang Xingxiao clenched his hands into fists. "I can't go back. I have to stay here." Wang Xiaoyao's eyes were a little complicated. Father is seriously injured. Now it's different from before. Many people say that this is a new era in the dark world. They say that after Mormon's sword, the new era has begun. I'm the heir of the Wang family of Beihai. I can't afford to lose. I really can't afford to lose. So, I can't go back. Even if Heaven's Saber dies, even Brother Jiang will fail, Li Tianlan will sweep Mount Dibing. I can't go back. Wang Xingxiao's voice seemed to be gritting his teeth. "If I don't go back, I won't fail." He sat in the chair and seemed to be unable to breathe. His body was extremely stiff. Wang Xingxiao looked at him quietly for a long time before sighing softly. He walked around the desk, reached out, and patted Wang Xingxiao on the shoulder. "Yuetong has gone back." Wang Xiaoyao said softly, "She has been with Li Tianlan, but now she has returned to Mount Dibing." "I don't want to say anything. I just want to say that Yuetong's return to Mount Dibing and your silence in Eastern Europe today are the greatest courage." Wang Xingxiao trembled and took a deep breath. He reached out and held Wang Xiaoyao's palm tightly. "Second uncle," his voice trembled and he was a little confused. "Am I useless? How could it be?" Wang Xiaoyao laughed and touched his nephew's head. "I watched that video. I don't think it makes sense for you to go back, so it's best for you to stay here. At least, if you're not in Mount Dibing, the Wang family of Beihai won't fail completely. You can't do anything now. The only thing you can do is to be silent." He whispered. "What about you?" Wang Xingxiao looked up at Wang Xiaoyao's eyes. "You are a new invincible realm expert. What if you go back?" This question, Wang Xiaoyao was silent for a while and whispered, "This question itself is meaningless. Your mother doesn't agree with me in Mount Dibing, and neither does my elder brother. I don't agree with your approach either." Wang Xingxiao looked into Wang Xiaoyao's eyes with pleading eyes. "What you want, what Beihai wants, we can do it with our own ability. In the hundreds of years of history of Beihai, when has there ever been such a despicable practice?" Wang Xiaoyao looked at Wang Xingxiao and said seriously, "How is it despicable? It's all reasonable. Everything I've done is my ability." Wang Xingxiao held Wang Xiaoyao's palm and said nothing. You're still too young. Wang Xiaoyao looked at Wang Xingxiao and pulled his palm out of Wang Xingxiao's hand little by little. Young people are too naive. Wang Xingxiao's hand, which was a little red, patted him on the shoulder. Don't think too much. Pay attention to rest. He packed up the food box and walked out of the door. Second uncle. Wang Xingxiao shouted behind him. Wang Xiaoyao's figure stopped in place. After a long time, he chuckled. It's okay. He walked out of the door. The door was closed. The dark night shrouded the room, extremely deep. Wang Xingxiao sat in the chair like a statue. The computer on the desk suddenly lit up. A strange video was transmitted. The light shone on Wang Xingxiao's face, looking faint. Wang Xingxiao frowned and connected the video. At the other end of the video, Jiang Shangyu's face appeared on the screen with a bright face. Did you see that sword light? He asked directly before Wang Xingxiao could speak. Before Wang Xingxiao could answer. He continued to say with a smile, I can survive that sword strike. Can you? Chapter 651. When the meeting of the World Palace was forcibly ended in a hubbub, Dijiang, who only spoke a few times in the whole meeting, but almost all of them were orders, slowly stood up and walked out of the World Palace in a suppressed doubt and anger. His order was too inconceivable. It was opposed by several sword-holding families on the spot. But an order was an order. Dijiang didn't give in at all. When Wang Tianzong didn't come out, everything on Mount Dibing and the Wang family of Beihai was under his full control. When the real order came down, no one could disobey it, and no one dared to resist now. The first heavy rain in late summer and early autumn spread from the autumn water to Xingzhou. The sky was gloomy, and the air was cool. Dijiang stood in front of the door of the World Palace, watching the crazy autumn rain knocking on the quaint cornices, and remained silent for a long time. Firmament, an expert of the half-step invincible realm from the Wang family of Beihai, stood outside the World Palace in person. Seeing Dijiang come out, he gently closed the door in the face of countless ambiguous gazes in the World Palace. That's it. Dijiang murmured to himself. Are you sure you want to do this? Firmament frowned and asked. This is the best choice. Dijiang's figure walked into the wind and rain. His figure was extremely straight in the rain, very firm, but with a kind of exhaustion that could not bear the burden. Firmament stared at his back for a very long time. Dijiang kept walking along the path. The wind and rain drenched him, and his clothes were wet in an instant. He passed by a flower bed and a delicate lake. A narrow and straight flagstone path appeared in front of him. This was a starting point. Mount Dibing was full of colorful flowers. But looking from this flagstone road, it was all gray everywhere. It was an indescribable color that contained countless emotions, with endless desolation, extending to the highest point of Mount Dibing. There were no flowers or green grass here. Only countless rocks piled up to form the hardest road. Silent, solemn, and solemn. Almost sacred. Dijiang walked up along the path. At the end of the path were steps. The steps were very high, and every step needed to be steady. Dijiang looked calm. He slowly walked up, walking in the purest color of Mount Dibing. Under the violent wind and rain, his silent figure seemed to have completely merged with the gray and white. At the end of the steps was a small space. In the center of the platform, which was nearly 200 square meters, stood a huge boulder that had been eroded by time and wind and rain for hundreds of years. The densely packed names spread down the huge boulder, bringing with them an indescribable solemnity and solemnity. This was the least ornamental place in the entire Mount Dibing. This was the most sacred place in the entire Mount Dibing. It was also the highest place in the entire Mount Dibing. Stage of formidable person. Stone of formidable ambition. Dijiang looked at the stone that had stood there for hundreds of years and the name on it. There were a lot of names on the list. But every name could be found in the history of the Wang family of Beihai. The sacrificed, the good fighters, the missing, everyone, no matter the outcome. Their names were carved on the stone, indicating their contributions to the Wang family of Beihai. Di Jiang found his ancestors on it. The people with the surname Jiang were lined up neatly. Right above the Jiang family was a name that still shone on the genealogy of the Wang family of Beihai. Wang Fuyu. The younger brother of the Chosen One. He was also the patriarch of the Jiang family. Di Jiang smiled. He stared deeply at every name, and his laughter was obviously trembling. At this moment, his eyes were crazy and solemn, with unparalleled persistence and passion. It was as if an endless pressure was pressing down on his body, and then he lifted it up with an incomparably great strength. "I'm sorry," he said softly, looking at the ancestors of the Jiang family, and said softly, "I'm sorry," he said sorry countless times. But only the wind and rain responded to him. A light footstep sounded on the steps. The footsteps were intermittent, lingering in Di Jiang's consciousness. They came and went, but they were getting closer and closer to him. Di Jiang turned his head vigilantly, and then froze on the spot. In his sight, a white dress almost floated to the stage of formidable person. The white dress evaporated the falling wind and rain with high temperature. Her delicate short hair was clean and tidy. Her face was still beautiful, but extremely pale and numb. Her steps were soft and drifting, and she walked slowly to the stage of formidable person, like a ghost without any vitality. Di Jiang looked at her quietly, with mixed feelings. Wang Yuetong didn't speak. She stood in front of the stone of formidable person and looked at the names one by one. After a long time, she said softly, "Brother Jiang, you imprisoned the patriarchs of the 7 sword-holding families?" "Yes." Di Jiang said softly. He had a clear conscience, so he didn't need to explain anything. Wang Yuetong looked down quietly. This was the highest place of Mount Dibing, so she could see the whole view of Mount Dibing. Through the woods and the sea of flowers, Mount Dibing was moving. The square, every path, the top of the mountainside, the foot of the mountain, everywhere was moving. Countless people were walking down. Even the tens of thousands of elites of the Beihai Corps stationed at the foot of the mountain were moving. And the internal security troops guarding Mount Dibing were also moving. Wang Yuetong looked at all this quietly and asked, "Why?" "The Beihai Corps has 2 large-scale maneuvers in Kanglan and Floating Island. Now it's time for them to set off. As for the internal security forces, they've been living too comfortably these years. Although they've maintained their usual training, having sufficient combat effectiveness doesn't mean having advanced combat awareness. So, I sent them to Kanglan to participate in this maneuver together." Di Jiang's voice was calm without any ups and downs. Wang Yuetong looked at everything in sight. A sniper battalion that originally belonged to the internal security troops on the mountainside also started to move down the mountain. And at the place closest to the top of the mountain, one squad after another began to leave Mount Dibing. Wang Yuetong's heart was empty. Are the Heaven Punishment Troop also leaving? All of them. Di Jiang said softly, "They are needed for the maneuver." "What about here?" Wang Yuetong asked. "He is coming. Is there any force here that can stop him?" "And me." Di Jiang said, "I will try my best to stop him in front of the stage of formidable person." "What if you can't beat him?" Wang Yuetong looked at Di Jiang's eyes. "The old master has fallen. If you fail, that's also my failure." Di Jiang's voice was calm and a little cruel. "It's my own failure. It's not the failure of Mount Dibing. All the forces on Mount Dibing have been drawn out. In an empty state, when he comes to Mount Dibing, he can only defeat me. He can't defeat Mount Dibing. Even if he gets on the stage of formidable person, he is just a villain who takes advantage of the situation. This is my mistake. It has nothing to do with Mount Dibing or the Wang family of Beihai." Wang Yuetong stood there and looked at Di Jiang, lost in thought. She finally understood Di Jiang's plan. He imprisoned the patriarchs of the 7 major sword-holding families to prevent them from intervening in this battle. He transferred all the forces on Mount Dibing, leaving Mount Dibing in an empty state. He stayed here alone, waiting for Li Tianlan. He would do his best to protect everything of the Wang family of Beihai. But he was also ready to bear all the humiliation and failure. Even here, it was only Dijiang who failed. Dijiang's surname was not Wang. Even if he failed, even if he was humiliated, it was Dijiang who suffered all this. Maybe some people would question that transferring the Heaven Punishment Troop and the Internal Security Troop away was cowardly for retreating without fighting. But it was also Dijiang who made this decision. Facing Li Tianlan, who was about to come to Mount Dibing, Dijiang was ready for both sides. If he won, everyone would be happy. If he lost, he would bear all the infamy, all the humiliation, and all the failure alone. Wang Yuedong's eyes were a little dazed. Why did he do that? She murmured. For Beihai. Dijiang's voice was still calm and composed. He turned to look at the names of the ancestors of the Jiang family, and there was finally a trace of sadness in his eyes. The ancestors of our Jiang family. He pointed to the name at the top, which was second only to Wang Fuyu. When the Jiang family was founded, it happened to face the strongest counterattack of East Island. They wanted to take back half of the land that now belonged to Beihai. Experts came and went. My ancestor blocked Qiushui with less than 30 elites of the Jiang family. They fought fiercely for a day and a night, killed nearly 600 experts of East Island, and died of exhaustion. My grandfather. 30 years ago, when I was young, I went deep into Star State alone and rescued nearly 300 elites of the Wang family of Beihai who were besieged in Star State. From Federal City to the seaside, it was more than 400 kilometers. He contained more than half of the men in black in Star State and killed 15 experts at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm in Star State alone. When his body was sent back, it could hardly be found intact. He took a deep breath and stared at the names of the Jiang family with great affection. The names carved on the stone of formidable person have countless identities, but there is only one identity that belongs to the Jiang family. They are all sacrifices. And he laughed, thinking about everything that might happen, the humiliation he would bear, the infamy he would suffer, and the failure he would face. If I am lucky in the future, when my name is carved on the stone of formidable person, I should be the only coward in the Jiang family and the only one on the stone of formidable person. Have you ever thought about what will happen after you do this? Wang Yuetong looked at him. Your own future, the future of the Wang family of Beihai. I haven't thought about my future. Dijiang said calmly, but the future of the Wang family of Beihai, if I fail, I will be opposed by many sword-holding families, and even discussed and disdained by countless people of Beihai. I don't deserve to sit in this position. He whispered, so the future of the Wang family of Beihai has to wait for Xingxiao to come back. Wang Yuedong's body shook slightly. If Dijiang failed. He preserved the power of Mount Dibing, but he bore endless infamy. At that time, Wang Xingxiao would come back from Eastern Europe, and he could naturally sit in his position and take charge of everything of the Wang family of Beihai as the heir. Justifiably. Did you plan this? Wang Yuetong looked at him and asked. Dijiang didn't answer the question, but said blandly, this is my own choice. He looked at the names on the stone of formidable person and whispered, I'm sorry to them, but I won't regret it. Chapter 652. The afterglow of the setting sun shone quietly on the vast sea. The calm sea glowed with golden light. Under the burning sky, more and more people appeared on the ground. Countless behemoths floated in Beihai. The roar in the sky kept ringing. The crowd rushed on the ground, occupying all the places in the mountains, woods, and lawns, like torrents, with the power to sweep everything away. The roars and roars that were loud enough to shake the world rushed into the sea and into the sky, with endless anger, like a force that could tear the world apart. Dongqing Wudi watched all this quietly. His eyes were calm, but his face was full of a satisfied smile. The morale is high. He turned around and patted the shoulder of a lieutenant general beside him, saying with a smile, very good. What I hope to see next is a real fierce battle. His palm gradually tightened, and his voice was steady. Beihai Corps, very good. You didn't let me down, Minister, you flatter us. Beside Dongqing Wudi, Lieutenant General of Zhongzhou State, Deputy Commander of Beihai Corps, Chief of Staff Wang Wenxiang, said with a straight face, Beihai Corps will not let anyone down. This is an army that dares to fight hard battles. They guard Beihai and are not afraid of any challenge. Dongqing Wudi nodded and said lightly, very good. Has the army I want to see come? Wang Wenxiang narrowed his eyes and looked at Dongqing Wudi. His eyes were extremely cold, but at this time there was a hint of mockery in them. Minister, rest assured. The Xinwu army of Xingzhou has set off as soon as it received the order. Now it has left Xingzhou and is very close to the floating island. Dongqing Wudi turned to look at him and said flatly, Wenxiang seems to be very dissatisfied with my arrangement. His eyes were calm, but they shrouded Wang Wenxiang with unparalleled pressure. Wang Wenxiang subconsciously tilted his head. If Dongqing Wudi, who had stayed in the army headquarters for a few years, had no edge, then in Snow Country, Dongqing Wudi, who had advanced thousands of miles in one day and was invincible, had told the world that the god of massacre was still the god of massacre. Although his personal force was not invincible, in the charge and battle of thousands of troops, he was still the top general in the world and the most terrible commander. Wang Wenxiang avoided Dongqing Wudi's eyes, but the humiliation in his heart grew stronger. Dongqing Wudi arrived at Floating Island City a day ago. The order of the army headquarters directly suppressed the entire Beihai Corps. Dongqing Wudi personally ordered the Beihai Corps to defend the station to the death. Any large-scale transfer beyond the company level must be reported to the army headquarters of Zhongzhou State. At the same time, Dongqing Wudi personally named several of the most combat-capable troops of the Beihai Corps to the floating island and Kanglan, saying that they were going to conduct a large-scale maneuver. The order came very abruptly, but military orders had to be obeyed. If the North Sea Legion didn't move, it would be tantamount to treason. The army named by Dongqing Wudi began to assemble. This included the Xingzhou Divine Martial Army. Everyone in North Sea knew what the Xinwu army meant. They were the troops stationed at the foot of Mount Dibing to protect it. When Li Tianlan swept across the entire Beihai province, the Beihai Corps was restless. Several bad-tempered generals had planned to lead the army to fight Li Tianlan to the death in Xingzhou. Now that the order was issued, Dongqing Wudi came to Beihai in person, which meant that he alone suppressed more than 200,000 troops of the Beihai Corps. All the elites of the Wang family of Beihai who planned to fight to the death with Li Tianlan could only grit their teeth and bear it. They were loyal enough to Beihai to not care about their duties and lives. But the order from the army headquarters of Zhongzhou State came down. If they didn't obey, they would be tantamount to treason. No one wanted to see that bring trouble to the Wang family of Beihai, which was now in turmoil. Beihai province was dominated by Mount Dibing. Under such circumstances, Sword Emperor, the only one who could object to Dongqing Wudi's order, was nowhere to be found. Everyone put their hopes on Dijiang, the acting patriarch. But Dijiang didn't resist at all. He accepted Dongqing Wudi's order. More than that, he even transferred the internal security forces of Mount Dibing and the Heaven Punishment Troop to the Floating Island and Kanglan Group. Not everyone is a wise man. At this moment, countless people were gnashing their teeth at Dijiang, who had made Mount Dibing empty. Countless people cursed him as a coward, a traitor, and a dog of Dongqing Wudi. And those who could see the situation clearly could only remain silent at this time. Wang Wenxiang could see Dijiang's painstaking efforts, but he couldn't say anything more. Now he could only report to Dongqing Wudi truthfully, not only the Divine Martial Army, but also the internal security forces of Mount Dibing and the Heaven Punishment Troop are already on the way. We will fully cooperate with the minister's maneuver plan. Dongqing Wudi froze in place. Shortly after he arrived here, Bai Qingzhao, the Deputy Secretary General of the Army Headquarters who also rushed over from Yuzhou, also froze in place. After a long time, Dongqing Wudi blinked again and said in an indifferent voice, I see. Wang Wenxiang clenched his fist hard and said expressionlessly, Minister, if there's nothing else, I'll go down and arrange it. Dongqing Wudi waved his hand casually. Wang Wenxiang turned and left directly. Dongqing Wudi held the railing in front of him with both hands and looked at the endless army below and the vast ocean in front of him. He was silent for a long time. Ha! Dijiang, when the sky was completely dark, he finally opened his mouth and shook his head with a smile. He's asking to be humiliated. There was obvious emotion in Bai Qingzhao's voice. He paused and said with a smile, "It's not a derogatory word. I admire him for what he did." He really admired his courage to ask to be humiliated and appreciated his rationality in the face of difficulties. He's very decisive. He should have made a choice by now. Dongqing Wudi said softly, "This is Beihai." Bai Qingzhao was silent. Indeed, this was Beihai. This was the Wang family of Beihai. When Sword Emperor was silent and unstable, there was Wang Yuetong, who gave up everything and returned to Beihai. There was Wang Xingshao, who was silent and forbearing in Eastern Europe. There was also Dijiang, who was willing to bear all the infamy for the Wang family of Beihai but wanted to protect the last bit of dignity of the Wang family. Such a Beihai might lack the domineering and invincible aura of dominating the world, but it was still admirable. I respect his choice. Dongqing Wudi said slowly, "In this case, we should move faster. We should get back what we should get back as soon as possible." Dijiang has no backup plan? Bai Qingzhao asked. Dongqing Wudi smiled. How could he care about that? And even if he has a backup plan, so what? The Border Control Corps is my Border Control Corps. Bai Qingzhao thought for a moment and nodded. Everyone could see the ending of Dijiang. In the Battle of Mount Dibing, as long as he was defeated by Li Tianlan, he would basically lose his reputation and even be doomed eternally. This was his choice. He chose to bear all the infamy and failure. Naturally, he was mentally prepared. His failure would make Li Tianlan appear on the stage of formidable person. It would make the Wang family of Beihai lose its face. He would be scolded as a coward and even a traitor by countless people. Under such a situation, no matter whether someone in the Wang family of Beihai understood, it was impossible to clear Dijiang's name. The anger of more than 200,000 troops in the Beihai Corps needed to be vented. The anger of tens of millions of people also needed to be vented. And these, no matter right or wrong, Dijiang had to bear it. He would be kicked out of his current position and thrown away by the North Sea province like trash. Such a Dijiang naturally could not keep his position as the commander of the Border Control Corps of Zhongzhou State. He would lose everything just to leave a trace of dignity and hope for the Wang family of Beihai. Dongqing Wudi looked at the Kanglan River ahead and the island in the Kanglan River. The Jiang family of Kanglan. Loyal, brave, and fearless. He sighed softly. Dijiang can bear this humiliation and the 4 words that the Jiang family has been insisting on for hundreds of years. Loyal, brave, and fearless. Most of the time, it often took more courage and loyalty to bear humiliation. But a fight was a fight. Dongqing Wudi would sigh with emotion, but it was impossible for him not to take action. The hundreds of thousands of troops in the Border Control Corps were his corps. In the future, they would also be Li Tianlan's corps. He had suppressed the Beihai Corps in Beihai. Dijiang brought disgrace upon himself. He transferred the internal security forces and the heaven punishment troop and imprisoned the patriarch of the sword-holding family. Now there was only Dijiang standing in front of him. As long as Li Tianlan went to Mount Dibing and defeated Dijiang, he would break through Beihai. Dongqing Wudi narrowed his eyes with some worry. How is Tianlan now? No news yet. Bai Qingzhao took a deep breath. Now we can't find where he is, but he should be in Floating Island City. September 4th, Kanglan Lake. The Chosen One sky-chopping saber. The world was shocked. After the battle, Heaven Saber died. Li Tianlan, who had left Kanglan Island, had been silent for 3 days. Now the eyes of the whole dark world were watching Beihai. They were guessing Li Tianlan's next step, discussing his injury, and looking forward to his journey. Now, inside Beihai province, there were even some news about Li Tianlan being seriously injured in the battle with the Sky Saber, or even dying, had begun to appear. Dongqing Wudi and Li Tianlan talked on the phone. He could be sure that Li Tianlan's injury was not fatal, but he did not know how serious it was. But he knew very well that Li Tianlan would definitely go to Mount Dibing. He had to go forward. In the gradually dimming sky, the endless blades were still surging. There were more and more huge warships and low-flying fighters on the sea. Dongqing Wudi frowned little by little. Bai Qingzhao's phone suddenly rang. He picked up the phone and picked it up. His eyebrows suddenly rose. At the same time, the information from the floating island rushed out of the island and swept the whole dark world like a hurricane. Tianlan is moving. Bai Qingzhao looked at Dongqing Wudi and said excitedly. Dongqing Wudi suddenly turned around. On the night of September 7th, Li Tianlan, the palace lord of Eastern Palace, officially appeared on the floating island, Ningxin Mountain. The sword light illuminated the night sky. In less than 20 minutes, the three sword formations in the Tang Corps headquarters were completely destroyed. Tang Corps' elites suffered heavy casualties. The legendary star dome fell into Li Tianlan's hands. Li Tianlan struck again. On the 13th floor, the shadow sword landed on the floating island. September 8th, noon. The sword light headed north. Liuli City's Yi family's #1 master, Yi Guichen, had died in battle. The crystal sword fell into Li Tianlan's hand. Li Tianlan personally inserted the sky edge sword into the ancestral hall of the Yi family. September 9th. The sword light replaced the morning light of the Queen City. 13-story building had killed 6 thundershocking realm experts of the Xia clan. This was the first time the Heaven's Wrath sword left the Xia clan. The Grand Orient sword had replaced Heavenly Wrath. September 10th, Xingzhou City. The hero's sword left the Xingzhou Wu clan and was replaced by Ruling Sword. The sword light that shook the entire dark world did not stop at all. On the evening of September 10th, Li Tianlan, the palace lord of Emperor East's palace, officially stepped into Mount Dibing for the first time. One person. The soldiers were at the gates. Chapter 653. Li Tianlan stared at Mount Dibing. Mount Dibing was also staring at him. There was Xingzhou in Beihai. Outside Xingzhou city was the holy mountain in the hearts of all the people in Beihai province. It was majestic, mysterious, and beautiful. It stood on this land with its back against the sea. For hundreds of years, it had been the real power center of Beihai province. Violent wind and torrential rain. Gloomy twilight. Sharp swords and whistling wind. Everything was raging on Mount Dibing. Under the deep sky, the majestic Mount Dibing was dead silent, with infinite gloom and desolation at the end of its road. Li Tianlan quietly looked at the grass and trees in front of him and the smooth mountain road. The silent Mount Dibing was a little gloomy and ferocious. It sat here and seemed extremely stubborn. He had never liked the Wang family of Beihai. He didn't like Mount Dibing either. He didn't like the grass and trees here either. This was the first time he had been here. He looked for a long time before he slowly gave his evaluation. It looks disgusting. You think it looks disgusting, and it also looks disgusting to you. A panting voice sounded behind Li Tianlan. The voice was laughing, but it was full of bitterness. Li Tianlan turned around in surprise. In his sight, Lin Fengting stood there, covering his chest with one hand, and his body was a little stooped. His face was pale. Looking at the dead silent Mount Dibing, his eyes were full of complicated feelings. Li Tianlan didn't think much at all. He immediately appeared beside Lin Fengting and held him up. Lin Fengting glanced at Li Tianlan and smiled with some difficulty. Fortunately, I'm not late. In the chaos of Eastern Europe, among the few experts at the peak of the invincible realm in the world, Lin Fengting's injury was the lightest. He broke through to the peak of the invincible realm, and it didn't even affect his foundation. Now in the whole dark world, Lin Fengting could be said to be the real first person. But minor injuries were always relative. His lightest injury was also serious enough to make most Invincible Realm experts despair. The extremely serious internal injury was torturing his body almost all the time. Now, what Lin Fengting needed most was to recuperate. From Yuzhou to Beihai, the journey was undoubtedly aggravating his injury. Li Tianlan was a little moved and whispered, "When did you wake up?" 8 hours ago. Lin Fengting's handsome and carefree face was pale and twisted at this moment, and it was extremely strenuous for him to speak. Li Tianlan took a deep breath, helped him sit on the stone beside the mountain road, and said calmly, "You can rest here. Now in Mount Dibing, no one can threaten me." Lin Fengting wanted to say something but hesitated. A strange look flashed in his eyes. In Li Tianlan's sight, he looked in the direction of Mount Dibing and chuckled. "Now. I'm seriously injured now. Tianlan, I'm afraid any thunder-shocking realm expert can kill me, not to mention you. If you come to Mount Dibing, I can't help you." Li Tianlan's body stiffened for a moment. He looked at Lin Fengting in silence for a long time. Lin Fengting was also silent for a long time. The twilight was filled with darkness. The wind and rain were like a waterfall, pouring down unscrupulously in the pure night. Without light, Mount Dibing became more and more silent. Lin Fengting struggled to stand up. Without speaking to Li Tianlan, he walked silently along the mountain road. Why? For the first time, there was a trace of uncontrollable anger in Li Tianlan's voice. This anger was so intense, with a sense of oppression that could not be concealed. Lin Fengting paused and did not answer for a while. Li Tianlan looked at his back, but he completely understood what Lin Fengting meant. His injury had not been healed, and his combat capability was less than 1/10. He could not help Li Tianlan. But he came to Beihai. Lin Fengting would not do meaningless things. He came to Beihai to help. He could not help Li Tianlan, but he could help the Wang family of Beihai. Li Tianlan laughed at himself. Lin Fengting came to Beihai to help the Wang family of Beihai. Why? He asked word by word. Lin Fengting turned to look at him with gentle eyes. Li Tianlan gradually quieted down, then became calm, and finally became as silent as Mount Dibing. Soon after he entered the secular world, he saw Lin Fengting. The figure of the Lin clan had been mixed in the grievances between the Li family and the Wang family of Beihai, intentionally or unintentionally. He seemed to be used to the feeling of Lin Fengting standing beside him. Until this moment, he understood that the Lin clan was not obliged to support him unconditionally. Lin Yuxian might have such a position, but the Lin clan would not. When the Li family was weak, the Lin clan had to protect the Li family and Li Tianlan. For the past, for the friendship of the past. Now when the Wang family of Beihai was weak, the Lin clan had to protect the Wang family of Beihai and Wang Tianzong. It was also for the past, for the friendship of the past. Lin Fengting did not know if what he did was meaningful, nor did he know what he could do to protect the Wang family of Beihai. Perhaps he had not thought about these questions. It did not matter whether he could keep it or not. What mattered was that for him, it was something he had to do. This was Lin Fengting. He was such a person. The Wang family, the Lin clan, and the Li family. When the Wang family and the Li family turned against each other, Lin Fengting was like a fool. He was extremely persistent in the grievances between the two sides. For countless years, all he did was not pleasing. But so what? He was such a person. Why? Li Tianlan asked again. Lin Fengting smiled slowly. Great pain was brewing in his body. His smile was a little bleak, but it was very real. Tianlan. How can there be so many reasons? He looked into Li Tianlan's eyes. For many things, you don't have to figure out why before you can do them. The reason is often not important. His voice was a little low. The important thing is whether we should do these things or not. I think it's what I should do, so I'm here. As for why. Under the wind and rain, he was silent for a long time before he whispered, I don't know either. Your injury. Li Tianlan took a step forward. His face was calm, but there was almost boiling anger in his eyes. That kind of anger was like the most violent fire, surging endlessly. But this time, there was no complaint in his excited voice. Don't forget that your injury was all caused by Wang Tianzong. Now I am in Mount Dibing. Do you want to stop me? Have you forgotten about your injuries? On the trial day in Eastern Europe, the devil troop caused chaos in Wulan City. When I was in a desperate situation, the Snowdance Corps risked their lives to charge. Those are my soldiers. My soldiers. More than 900 soldiers of the Snowdance Corps died in the hands of the devil troop. More than 900 people. Have you forgotten all these? On the final day, in the manor of the Samsara Palace, you were seriously injured and in a coma. As soon as the palace master left, the devil troop attacked the manor with thousands of elites from Beihai. The devil blew himself up. They wanted to kill me. If it weren't for Rushi, not only me, but also Lin Yuxian would have died there. Now Rushi is still lying in the hospital. If there is no miracle, she will be in a vegetative state for the rest of her life. Vegetative state. Vegetative state. This is all a good thing done by the Wang family of Beihai. Now I want to go up the mountain. You are my senior and the person I respect. But now you want to fucking stop me and help the fucking Wang family of Beihai. Have you forgotten all those things before? Li Tianlan kicked on the roadside boulder engraved with the 3 characters of Mount Dibing. The boulder, which was nearly 10 meters high, suddenly exploded under the great force. Li Tianlan's whole body was covered with rain, and his eyes were full of fierce light. Lin Fengting looked at him quietly and listened to him count the sins of the Wang family of Beihai. He only felt that the scene in front of him was very familiar. The old things were always reincarnated. In other words, what could be reincarnated were all the old things. It was unchanging, repeating itself forever. It was extremely boring. Lin Fengting was a little tired. Many years ago, it was also in Mount Dibing. It was also raining heavily here. There was also a young man standing in front of him, counting the Li family's mistakes in an extremely excited tone. But at that time, he was also very young. He smiled and whispered, "I haven't forgotten what you said." His eyes and voice were very gentle, and even somewhat open-minded, no longer as angry as in the past. But I'm not familiar with Dongqing Wudi, and I have no affection for him. I'm not familiar with the Snowdance Corps, and I have no affection for him. What you said is actually the Li family's business, not the Lin clan's business. My entanglement with Tianzong is because of my current injuries. This is a grudge. But in the past countless years, you don't know how many times he has saved me, nor how many times he has helped the Lin clan. This is kindness. He waved his hand as if he wanted to dispel the wind and rain between him and Li Tianlan, so that they could see each other more clearly. Sometimes the world is very simple. Revenge is revenge, and kindness is repaid. But once the 2 words are put together, it is the most complicated thing in the world. If you want to go to the stage of formidable person and destroy the stone of formidable person, I won't stop you, because that's your position. No, it's not bad. But I won't sit back and watch. That's my position. Tianlan, I'm still alive. As long as I'm here, I won't sit back and watch the Wang family of Beihai destroy the Li family, and I won't watch you destroy the Wang family of Beihai. I've been indecisive all my life. I've been stuck between you and me. For many years, countless patriarchs of the Lin clan have been stuck between you and me. What can I do? In the wind and rain, he laughed. I'm such a person, and the Lin clan is such a family. Li Tianlan quietly walked to Lin Fengting and did not speak. He did not approve of what Lin Fengting did. But it didn't matter. Because this was the position of the Lin clan, and it was what Lin Fengting thought he should do. Since it was what he should do, there would be no reason, and he did not need anyone's approval. He was such a person. For such a Mount Dibing, for such a Wang family of Beihai, is it worth it? Li Tianlan asked. Lin Fengting's eyes became more and more dazed. More than 20 years ago, here, under the heavy rain, Wang Tianzong, who was also young at that time, said the same thing to him, who was also young at that time. For such as Wan Yuantai, for such a Li family, is it worth it? Lin Fengting laughed. He did not know why, but he suddenly wanted to laugh. In the face of the same question, he gave the same answer as many years ago. It's worth it. Without hesitation, he was resolute. That's the kind of person he is. A voice suddenly rang out. In the heavy rain, Summer Solstice, dressed in loose ancient clothes, walked into this section of the mountain road at night. Her clothes were neat, and her expression was calm. She was as dignified as the Empress of the world. There was no extra person to greet Lin Fengting. But Summer Solstice came in person, which was enough to explain everything. She glanced at Lin Fengting, bowed slightly, and said softly, "Welcome." After a pause, she continued, "Thank you." Lin Fengting shook his head with a smile. Summer Solstice looked at Li Tianlan, and her eyes were extremely cold. Have you ever wondered why the Li family has survived until now? With Tianzong's character, he may endure for a while. But for so many years, if the Wang family of Beihai joins forces with Kunlun City, is it difficult to wipe out the Li family? Her voice was extremely cold. If it weren't for the Lin clan's strong intervention over the years, the Li family's camp would have become a cemetery. Chapter 654. Pale lightning lit up the night sky. Summer Solstice's cold and extremely calm voice spread throughout Mount Dibing. The rainstorm became more and more chaotic. In the wind and rain, Summer Solstice was no longer the carefree little woman who raised flowers and grass. At this moment, she stood in front of Li Tianlan, exuding a kind of strong and cold demeanor. She was calm but extremely dignified. Li Tianlan looked at her for a long time. He could not see any emotion in her eyes. Only indifference. "You hate the Li family," he suddenly said in a very affirmative tone. Summer Solstice's eyes narrowed and she did not speak. She did not hate the former Li family, but she did hate Li Guangtu, his ambition and arrogance. If nothing had happened, how wonderful would it be now? The Li family, which was still close to the Wang family of Beihai, would still have Li Tianlan, and the Wang family of Beihai would still have Wang Yuatong. This was a real match made in heaven. The Lin clan, the Wang family, and the Li family would also go in another different direction. Not like now, that's good. Li Tianlan chuckled. The flashing lightning in the sky shone on his face. His face was calm, but his smile suddenly became extremely evil. It was a real kind of unscrupulous arrogance. We all know. He looked at Summer Solstice and Lin Fengting, and his voice was as cold as the wind from hell. Everything is over. The so-called affection is over. You hate me, I hate you. This is the relationship between the Li family and Beihai today. He looked at Lin Fengting's increasingly bitter and helpless face and whispered, "The Lin clan and Beihai have affection. The Li family and the Lin clan have affection. But the Li family and the Wang family, I and the Wang family, only have hatred." His voice rushed out of the mountain road and swept around like thunder. My Li family and Beihai are just enemies. The most difficult thing in everything was purity. Purity was the best. The Li family was his Li family. Today, what he stood here and said was the rule of the Li family in the future. Or the rule. The Li family and the Wang family were mortal enemies forever. Lin Fengting smiled bitterly and shook his head. They did not agree. Summer Solstice seemed to be too lazy to look at Li Tianlan again. She reached out to support Lin Fengting's body and said softly, "Let's go up the mountain." Lin Fengting looked at Li Tianlan deeply and said softly, "Leave a way out for everything. Tianlan, you know my bottom line. I also said something to Tianzong back then. Now it's yours." His voice was soft and firm. "If we cross that line, the Li family will be the mortal enemy of the Lin clan in the future. I won't rest until one of us dies. It was not a threat. Instead, it was the clearest stance. The Lin clan must protect the Li family and the Wang family. At all costs. That was the kind of person he was. The Lin clan was also such a family. In the face of the remaining Li family and Lin Fengting's bottom line, Wang Tianzong finally chose not to cross that line and gave up the plan to cooperate with Kunlun City to squeeze the Li family. Today, Lin Fengting did not know what Li Tianlan would choose. Li Tianlan was expressionless. At this moment, no one knew what he was thinking. Lin Fengting didn't say anything more. He turned around and walked along the mountain path to the top of the mountain. The howling wind and torrential rain were still raging all over the mountains and plains. Li Tianlan stood still and watched summer solstice and Lin Fengting's backs getting farther and farther away. He was as solemn as a statue. Mount Dibing became quieter and quieter. Darkness and wind and rain shrouded the stage of Formidable Person. On the stage of Formidable Person, most of the core figures of the Wang family of Beihai stood there quietly, staring at the enemy at the foot of the mountain in the distance. The night was too dark, the rain was too heavy, and the distance was too far. Almost no one could see Li Tianlan's figure. But the strong humiliation slowly pressed down like the dark night in the sky. The glorious Mount Dibing seemed to have become dim from the first day that the young man stepped into Beihai. Until tonight, there was no more brilliance. Dijiang stood alone at the entrance of the stage of Formidable Person. The power as vigorous as the sea was slowly undulating in his body. The first disciple of the Sword Emperor with double thunder veins had risen to the extreme in both willpower and fighting desire. Seeing Summer Solstice and Lin Fengting walking over together, Dijiang was slightly stunned, but he didn't say anything. He just bowed deeply to Lin Fengting. Lin Fengting smiled and passed by Dijiang. He saw many familiar people, many of whom represented the present and future of the Wang family of Beihai. There were Wang Yuetong, Wang Qinglei, Song Xiai, and Tang Shi, the future hostess of the Wang family of Beihai. Lin Fengting watched all this quietly and kept silent for a long time. There are too many people, he whispered to himself. There were far more people on the stage of Formidable Person than what he saw. There were more people he knew but was not familiar with. Most of the core members of the Wang family of Beihai were standing here. Some were high officials in the political circle, and some were patriarchs of the major branches of Beihai. There were so many of them that the number was close to 50. They stood there and almost filled the entire stage of Formidable Person. Don't worry. Summer Solstice said softly, these people are not standing here to fight with Li Tianlan. Lin Fengting looked at Dijiang and said nothing. Summer Solstice seemed to understand what he was thinking and said faintly, Hong Wei meant to send everyone including me to a safe place, but I didn't agree. Instead, I gathered all the important people here. Tonight's battle, no matter who wins or loses, is the most important day for the Wang family of Beihai in recent decades. I won't let them fight with Li Tianlan. But as a member of the Wang family of Beihai, they have the obligation to remember today's humiliation. They must. He looked at Dijiang and said calmly, they must also remember the person who bore all the failures and curses for them today. Lin Fengting's mouth moved, but he said nothing. He could see that Li Tianlan was very sober. Entering Autumn Water, breaking Tongtian, suppressing Kanglin, passing Floating Island, sweeping all the way to Xingzhou and Mount Dibing. It could be said that Li Tianlan's journey was stained with blood. But so far, no important person who could really affect the overall situation of Beihai and the interests of Zhongzhou state had died under Li Tianlan's sword. Heaven Saber DK was a real heavyweight, but his saber was still sealed. His death caused a huge loss to the Jiang family, but it had little impact on Beihai and no impact on Zhongzhou state. Huangfu Feiyu, the famous general of the Huangfu family, was seriously injured, but it was not fatal. The Qin family suffered a great loss, but a large number of important people were also there. Li Tianlan's actions were accurate and almost insidious. He penetrated Beihai and weakened the most important elites of the major sword-holding families. He made them suffer a great loss, but he didn't touch the bottom line of Zhongzhou state. He didn't kill any important people, but he severely weakened the force of the major sword-holding families by several levels. It didn't matter whether his actions caused a great uproar or caused more undercurrents in Zhongzhou state. At least on the surface, Zhongzhou state still kept silent about Li Tianlan's current actions. So Lin Fengting didn't worry about the safety of these people. He came just to stop Li Tianlan from going to the stage of formidable person. No matter whether Dijiang bore the infamy or not, Li Tianlan standing on the stage of formidable person meant that he completely trampled on the Wang family of Beihai. In the absence of Wang Tianzong, the prestige of Mount Dibing would decline, and there would only be one ending. Division. Lin Fengting glanced at Wang Qinglei and sighed softly. Everything he did must ensure the integrity of the Wang family. How's his injury? Lin Fengting asked slowly in silence. His voice was so soft that only summer solstice could hear him. There was no doubt that he was asking about Wang Tianzong. Summer solstice smiled bitterly. She had nothing to hide from Lin Fengting. The patriarch of the Lin clan in front of her was her childhood playmate. Not to mention how tangled his position was, such a person, even as an enemy, was the kind of enemy that could be absolutely trusted. Not so good. She said slowly and then shook her head. It should be very bad. He has been in a deep coma, and now he has no self-consciousness at all. Lin Fengting subconsciously clenched his fists. Before the beginning of the day of eradication, he knew about the 13-story building and the power of this sword. He wasn't surprised about Wang Tianzong's injury, but he didn't expect that it would be so serious. That was the Sword Emperor, a person who had created countless miracles. Lin Fengting looked at the knight at the foot of the mountain and was silent for a long time. Then he said softly, according to your estimation, how long will it take for Tianzong to recover? Summer Solstice's eyes were a little dazed. How long would it take for Wang Tianzong to recover? She didn't dare to think about it at all. It could even be said that she had never thought about it. In Wang Tianzong's current state, the injury would be the next step. Recovery was the next step. What she needed to consider now was how to keep Wang Tianzong alive. Things had indeed gotten to this point. Wang Tianzong was now wandering between life and death. Summer Solstice saw the process of the 13-story building's birth and understood some of its principles, but only a small part. These might bring some help to Wang Tianzong, but the premise was that Wang Tianzong had to get through the current crisis, and Summer Solstice could help him. And such help, at most, the most optimistic result was that it could keep him from dying for the time being. The injury would be healed. Summer Solstice was in a trance and murmured, I don't know. Lin Fengting's heart sank slightly, and then he realized that the situation might be more serious than he thought. But when he thought of that sword, he didn't feel surprised. I don't understand. Summer Solstice's voice was very calm. Third brother, do you know about the 13-story building? Third brother, it was really a long-lost address. Lin Fengting felt a little emotional in his heart, but he didn't speak when he heard Summer Solstice's question. That's the real sword of the Chosen One, the invincible sword. The problem is, in the dark world for hundreds of years, only Tianzong has reached this realm. Then why is there such a sword in Eastern Europe? Who is the legendary Dongqing Huangtu? She looked at Lin Fengting and said quietly, I know you know. Who is he? Lin Fengting smiled bitterly. I know. He paused and whispered, but I don't know how to say it. Summer Solstice looked at Lin Fengting for a long time. I still don't understand. She said slowly, even if Dongqing Huangtu really exists and is really the Chosen One, how could his sword cause such serious damage to Tianzong? That night in Eastern Europe, Tianzong's swordsmanship was supreme. I don't believe anyone can surpass Tianzong at that time. Dongqing Huangtu stood at the same height as Tianzong at most. Even if the master of Samsara Palace can copy Dongqing Huangtu's sword, it shouldn't pose too much of a threat to Tianzong. That night, the Eternal Sword Light was indeed the most powerful sword move of the Chosen One at his peak. But Wang Tianzong was also the Chosen One, and there was no reason for him to be so seriously injured. In fact, Not only did Summer Solstice underestimate Wang Tianzong's injury, but even Wang Tianzong underestimated his own injury, and it was a serious underestimation. That sword move, Lin Fengting thought for a moment and whispered, "It's not what you think." It was a sword formation. Lin Fengting whispered, 13 half-step invincible realm experts who were telepathically connected assisted Flaming Fire, who was close to the peak of the invincible realm. Flaming Fire burst out with all her strength to condense sword intent and send it to the master of Samsara Palace at the peak of the invincible realm. In fact, all this was not for that sword move at all. 13 experts at the peak of the invincible realm, Flaming Fire, and the master of Samsara Palace did not do everything to copy that sword move. The master of Samsara Palace condensed only sword intent at that time, and that sword intent was completely poured into Xianyuan Feng. He smiled bitterly. It was Xianyuan Feng who really made that sword move. Strictly speaking, that sword move is really the best in the world, because even Dongqing Huangtu can't make such a move, let alone the master of Samsara Palace. Xianyuan Feng's sword move is more powerful than Dongqing Huangtu's own move. It's normal that Tianzong can't take it. But that's equivalent to 2 Tianzongs. Summer Solstice's voice was very stubborn. She had taken the immortality potion, but she still fell into this situation. It was easy to imagine what that meant. Lin Fengting stopped talking. He suddenly thought of the master of Samsara Palace, who was in a worse situation than Wang Tianzong. An emotion called fear continued to spread in his heart, turning into the deepest chill. He looked in the direction of Li Tianlan and kept silent for a long time. At this moment, Lin Fengting really felt fear. He was afraid that Li Tianlan would find out the truth. So everything that happened today was just a rehearsal. If the truth was exposed in front of Li Tianlan, what would happen? He looked back at the stage of formidable person behind him, at everyone on the stage of formidable person, at Summer Solstice, and at Dijiang. If Li Tianlan found out the truth one day, in the entire Mount Dibing, there might be no one alive in the 7 sword-holding families. That was the last thing Lin Fengting wanted to see. Maybe that was also the last thing Li Tianlan wanted to see. Chapter 655. Summer Solstice noticed Lin Fengting's strangeness at once. He tried to hide his expression in the dark wind and rain, but his eyes flickered with helplessness and bitterness that were close to despair. "What's wrong?" Summer Solstice asked aloud. Lin Fengting shook his head. He didn't know what to say or even what to do. Wang Tianzong could still wander between life and death. But the master of Samsara Palace had completely stepped into the gate of death. No one knew that the master of Samsara Palace was still in the Lin clan. Even few people in the Lin clan knew. Now the master of Samsara Palace had no vitality in her body. She was barely alive with the last breath. Lin Fengting couldn't describe the state that was infinitely close to quietus. The battle in Eastern Europe was too tragic. The master of Samsara Palace thought that everything was flawless. Li Tianlan's world was already clear, but the truth hidden in the dark was like a bottomless abyss, quietly devouring everything. Lin Fengting took a deep breath. Maybe that day would come when he really had to make a choice. But fortunately, it was not today. So Wang Tianzong still had time. The master of Samsara Palace also had time. "You didn't answer my question." Summer Solstice took a deep look at Lin Fengting and said quietly, "The truth about that sword stroke, about Dongqing Huangtu." Summer Solstice lowered her head and said softly in a trembling voice, "Third brother, please." Lin Fengting's figure was slightly stiff, and then he calmed down. "The truth is boring, and you may not be willing to believe it. Speaking of that sword stroke, the current result is not unexpected. Tianzong was indeed invincible in Eastern Europe, and no one could surpass him. But human power is limited after all. In the face of that sword stroke." He thought for a moment. Even if Dongqing Huangtu himself stood there with immortality, he couldn't stop that sword stroke, let alone Tianzong with immortality. He laughed self-deprecatingly. "Although that is his swordsmanship." "Why?" Summer Solstice stared at Lin Fengting. Lin Fengting didn't look at her, but looked in the direction of Li Tianlan and whispered, "You're about to see it." That was also the purpose of his visit today. "Do you know why I'm here?" he asked with a smile. Xia Zhi looked at Lin Fengting with some doubts. Of course, she knew the purpose of Lin Fengting's visit, but she didn't know the specific reason. Lin Fengting coughed. "I'm seriously injured now. When I was in Eastern Europe, Tianzong didn't want to kill me, but he didn't show mercy when he could spare my life. When he wakes up, I'll settle the score with him. But the current situation is that my current combat strength is not even as good as that of an ordinary thunder-shocking realm expert, or even a fire-flaming realm expert. In terms of combat, I can't help Tianlan, so naturally, I can't help you." He took a few deep breaths and said hoarsely, "I'm just a way out, a way for both of you to step down. If I don't come, you won't talk seriously. There's nothing to talk about." Summer Solstice said coldly, "We will not hand over the Devil Troop, nor will we apologize to the Snowdance Corps and the Dongqing clan. Dijiang is hardly a match for Tianlan." Lin Fengting shook his head. "You don't have any bargaining chips." "Hong Wei can't, but I can." Summer Solstice's voice was extremely calm. "If you force your hand, no matter what happens to Tianlan, how good will your end be?" Lin Fengting shook his head. "If something happens to you," he said meaningfully, "Xing Xiao is still in Eastern Europe with Wang Xiaoyao." Summer Solstice's calm eyes suddenly had a touch of fierce and violent madness, but behind this madness was so helplessness. She gritted her teeth and said word by word, "This is my own business." "You have scruples. So you haven't made a move, and you can't do your best. Even if you risk everything, can you really kill Li Tianlan?" Summer Solstice's foundation was half ruined now, and she had no realm. But in an instant, her strength would not be inferior to any expert at the peak of the invincible realm, including deity, Lin Fengting, and even Wang Tianzong before the breakthrough. Li Tianlan would not be a match for Summer Solstice, even if he had the 13th floor. But if he couldn't beat her, he might not die. Once Summer Solstice made a move, the consequences were almost doomed. Think about the Beihai he sees when he wakes up. Once you die, how good will Xing Xiao be in Eastern Europe? Is that Beihai what he wants? Lin Fengting asked. A gaze suddenly fell on Lin Fengting. Lin Fengting turned his head and looked over. In the crowd, beside Wang Yuetong, Song Ci stood there quietly and looked at him with pure eyes. Lin Fengting suddenly thought of an ending. That was the era of women. He smiled, looked at Song Ci, and said softly, "You can't support Beihai. Even if you can, it must be very hard. That's not what you want." Song Ci's small mouth opened slightly, and she looked stunned and inexplicable. Lin Fengting shook his head and didn't say much. "I can kill him." Summer Solstice was silent for a long time before she slowly opened her mouth. She didn't say the consequences, but repeatedly emphasized this fact. No matter how tragic her consequences would be, she stood here and had the power to threaten Li Tianlan's life and death. Naturally, she had the bargaining chip to negotiate with Li Tianlan at the last moment. Lin Fengting hesitated and didn't say much. He wanted to say that Summer Solstice could indeed kill Li Tianlan now, but not necessarily in a while. He wanted to say that if he really wanted to stop Li Tianlan, he should immediately transfer away the Devil Troop lying in ambush in Mount Dibing. But the Devil Troop was Li Tianlan's goal. Transfer away. Then there was no way to talk about it. So he didn't say much and sat there quietly, waiting for the moment when he could play the role of a stepping stone. The wind and rain were messy. The stage of Formidable Person was silent. The foot of Mount Dibing was also silent. Li Tianlan had been standing in the wind and rain for a long time. The wind and rain swept over with a chill. His previous injuries were suppressed little by little. All the anger gradually subsided. Li Tianlan's eyes became more focused and pure. The road to the mountain was ahead. His road. No one could stop him from moving forward. The 13-story building, with only a few swords left, flew around him. Li Tianlan looked up at the top of the mountain and slowly took a step. Who dares to fight with me? The next second, his voice sounded in the whole range of Mount Dibbing. It was calm, and confident. Forward. He took the second step. Who is qualified to fight with me? The voice spread from the foot of the mountain with wind and rain and endless darkness. At this moment, the whole Beihai was silent. Endless sword energy surged and gathered behind Li Tianlan with the most violent momentum. His figure moved forward along the path. There were more and more sword energy. The path was winding. At the end was the top of the mountain. The vast palaces were continuous, sitting in a large area of flowers and grass. They were quiet, beautiful, majestic, and dignified, with an inviolable sense of solemnity. But at this moment, there was no light on the top of the mountain. All the palaces were in the dark, only gloomy. This was the Wang family of Beihai. The whole picture of the Wang family of Beihai appeared in front of Li Tianlan for the first time. Li Tianlan smiled and said faintly, just as so. He turned around and looked back at the mountain road where he came from. The extremely gloomy and beautiful scenery was very beautiful. He said again, just as so. With his voice, the sword intent that had been gathering behind him suddenly began to roar and surge. There seemed to be countless long swords rubbing and colliding between heaven and earth. The sound was uniform and sharp. It suppressed the wind and rain in Mount Dibbing, suppressed the surging tide in Beihai, and overshadowed the muffled thunder between heaven and earth. Boom! A deafening roar rang out without warning. It seemed that there were thousands of swords roaring and slashing at the same time. The bright sword light illuminated the entire mountain road of Mount Dibbing in an instant, as if it was spreading in daylight. The surging sword light tore the mountain road of Mount Dibbing in an instant. The sword energy flew in all directions, like a shining ring, constantly spreading. The extremely chaotic sound kept ringing with the spreading of the sword light. From the foot of the mountain to the top. The mountain road that had passed by countless people, including countless high-ranking officials, generals, and bigwigs, was suddenly completely torn apart by the sword light. The sword light rushed into the forest on both sides of the road like a tide. The quaint pavilion, the sea of flowers, the neat trees, the flat grass, the clear lake, the sword chi continued to wreak havoc on Mount Dibbing, tearing everything it encountered. It was like countless storms blowing over Mount Dibbing at the same time. In the surging sword light, everything on the way to Mount Dibbing had become riddled with holes in an instant. In the darkness of the wind and rain, the collapsed pavilion, the muddy lake, the broken forest, the broken flowers, and the gully road. After the beauty was torn apart, the ugliness first appeared on Mount Dibbing, looking extremely ferocious. It covered thousands of meters and kept whistling, leaving a conspicuous scar on the incomparably beautiful Mount Dibbing. At this moment, many people looked at this scene in a daze, their hearts dead. The great sense of shame made everyone's eyes red on the stage of formidable person. Only Wang Yuetong stood there quietly. She didn't move, and even her aura didn't change. But the crystal tears were like beads with broken strings, flowing silently. Li Tianlan's figure was still moving forward. In the heavy rain, every pore on his body seemed to be shining, blooming with sword intent. Endless sword intent flew out from the soles of his feet, and the roaring sound of breaking was continuous. The continuous palaces of Mount Dibbing, which cost a lot, were torn apart one after another. The endless sword light shone on Li Tianlan's face. His expression was calm and dignified. Boom! Emperor Hall, where Sword Emperor and Summer Solstice usually lived, suddenly broke into pieces. All the furniture and appliances inside were torn into pieces. At this moment, Li Tianlan was like a giant waving a weapon, destroying everything on the majestic Mount Dibbing, leaving scars one after another. The holy mountain in the hearts of everyone in Beihai province had become fragmented in the blink of an eye. The surging sword light ravaged the palaces one after another. Li Tianlan's pace was getting faster and faster. The sword light was getting sharper and sharper. Broken wood, walls, and broken appliances kept flying. Crack, The moment the sword light fell, a special sound, as if standing on a heavy alloy, suddenly sounded. Li Tianlan suddenly turned his head. The world quieted down quietly. Without any warning. In the darkness, the sky was full of red light. The scarlet light lit up the night and the rain. The heavy rain was like blood that kept falling. North, south, east, west. Left and right sides. In 6 directions, the scarlet light became a hole in an instant. It seemed to be the densest domain, directly locking Li Tianlan in the middle. One figure after another appeared around Li Tianlan. Devil troop. 6 devils. They surrounded Li Tianlan, but they were far away from Li Tianlan. Countless scarlet lights bloomed from their eyes and flowed to their whole bodies. Thunder roared in the sky. The lightning turned scarlet. In the sudden silence, the 6 devils raised their arms at the same time. This time, they were not empty-handed. Each of the 6 devils held a sword in his hand. The sound of the long sword being unsheathed suddenly resounded through the night sky. With red light, the sword energy soared into the sky. In the east, he started with the sword of King Path of the Wang family of Beihai. The awe-inspiring sword energy kept whistling and blending in the heavy rain. In the west, the sword of Deceitful Path. In the south, the sword of Overbearing Path. In the north, the sword of Emperor Path. On the left, the sword of Saint Path. On the right, the sword of Heavenly Path. The sword light was like a tide. In an instant, it gathered in the domain that surrounded Li Tianlan. 6 sword lights with countless sword energy began to blend like angry waves. The center of the sword lights was Li Tianlan. This was the sword of 6 paths of the Wang family of Beihai. This was the devil troop of the Wang family of Beihai. This was the latest devil with swordsmanship instinct and self-awareness. It was the only group of trump cards in the Wang family of Beihai that could still kill the enemy with swordsmanship. They were all from the Wang family. Swordsmanship and sword intent were interlinked. The sword lights gathered. 6 paths of reincarnation. There was the 6 paths of reincarnation sword. Naturally, there was the 6 paths of reincarnation formation. The scarlet sword light rising into the sky gradually filled the scarlet domain. The sword energy in different directions became more and more majestic. The edge of the sword energy began to converge. Countless sword chis began to fuse together. It was an almost perfect blend. 6 swords in 6 directions almost became one sword in the blink of an eye. This sword, with awe-inspiring and crazy-killing intent, was enough to split heaven and earth. This was the ambush that the devil troop had planned for a long time. At this moment, Li Tianlan was standing in the center of the ambush of the 6 devils. So this sword was perfect. Although the power of the 6 people's joint attack was not at the peak of the invincible realm, it was equivalent to the 6 paths of reincarnation made by an invincible realm expert with all his strength. This sword alone was enough to hurt Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan quietly looked at the sword light that was getting closer and closer. There was no solemnity in his eyes. Instead, there was some confusion, then joy, and finally joy. He couldn't figure out why he was ambushed by the devil troop. Did the Wang family of Beihai think that the devils could fight with him without exploding themselves if they stood far enough away? Under the wind and rain, in the scarlet light, he laughed. The 13-story building appeared in front of him. Li Tianlan held the Xian Yuan sword. This time, to his surprise, the Xian Yuan sword suddenly shook in his hand, as if it wanted to break free. Li Tianlan was stunned and subconsciously loosened his hand. Buzz! A clear sound suddenly rang between heaven and earth. The pitch-black Xianyuan sword burst out with an incomparably faint and distant clear light. The water-like light illuminated the scarlet domain in an instant. On the stage of Formidable Person, the moment the clear sound rang, Summer Solstice's face changed dramatically. Her body almost jumped up in an instant. She was no longer calm and composed. She stared in Li Tianlan's direction, her body trembling. Her face was twisted as if she had seen a ghost in broad daylight. With an incredible emotion, she asked, "What is that?" Chapter 656. People tend to show different reactions when they are absolutely surprised and shocked. At this moment, every reaction of summer solstice had reached the extreme. The wisp of clear light was faint, distant, and not striking, yet it seemed like the clearest color in the world. Light bloomed in the blood-colored domain. It was neither fast nor slow, but it seemed to have a power that could suppress everything. Summer solstice's body was frozen in a very strange posture. Her pupils dilated, her breathing quickened, and her body trembled. The hostess of the Wang family of Beihai, who had always been calm, was in a trance at this time. Her expression was so complicated that it was completely indescribable. At this moment, she didn't even know what she was seeing. Was it an illusion? Or was it an illusion? In the blood-colored domain, that wisp of clear light was still blossoming, not too fast nor too slow. Its speed was extremely slow, but it was incomparably heavy, suppressing everything. The moment the clear light spread out, the originally incomparably violent 6 paths of reincarnation array seemed to completely stop. Summer solstice stared at this scene. Except for Lin Fengting, no one here, not even Dijiang, knew what this scene meant. Summer solstice suddenly closed her eyes. The surrounding space began to distort in a visible manner. Summer solstice gradually straightened her body and became extremely focused. Lin Fengting glanced at her. "You're not hypnotized." His voice was a little complicated. "Everything you see is real. In fact, have you ever seen an expert at the peak of the invincible realm be hypnotized?" Even if Summer Solstice's foundation was half ruined, she was still at the peak of the invincible realm. A spirit master who was infinitely close to the transcendent realm might be able to mislead ordinary experts of the invincible realm for a short time, but it was impossible for her to trick experts at the peak of the invincible realm. When she was in Eastern Europe, facing Jiang Qiansong, who was close to the peak of the invincible realm, Qin Weibai had tried her best to destroy his will first and let him fall into her trap when he was extremely weak and exhausted. Therefore, everything in front of Summer Solstice was real. Summer Solstice opened her eyes. Her face was deathly pale. Some things were inconceivable, inexplicable, and unexpected. When it happened in front of his eyes, that huge shock would eventually form the clearest emotion. Disbelief. How is this possible? Her body swayed and she almost fell. Song Xiai, who was closest to her, quickly supported her body. "This is what you should see," Lin Fengting said. "Now do you understand why Tianzong couldn't block that sword?" 13th floor. Xianyuan Feng. Summer Solstice vaguely understood something. Looking at the clear light in the distance, she was silent for a long time. "Is this the one strike you mentioned?" She slowly turned her head and looked at Lin Fengting. Because she was too emotional, her voice became a little shrill. "If it's not a sword, what is it?" Lin Fengting asked. Summer Solstice smiled bitterly. 13 floors, 13 swords. If Xianyuan Feng is like this, what about the others? It's all the same. Lin Fengting said. Summer Solstice's face was stiff. This time, she couldn't even smile bitterly. It was not until this moment that she understood why Wang Tianzong was so seriously injured. He also understood why the coldness of the 9 states created by the human emperor would be completely broken and would require a long time to repair. It turned out that Wang Tianzong was not worse than Dong Qinghuangtu. It was not that the coldness of Zhuzhou was inferior to Xianyuan Feng. All of this was because of the clear light in front of him, or rather, because of the colorful lights over Eastern Europe. She looked at the scarlet domain that was gradually suppressed by the clear light and thought of the 6 members of the devil troop from the Wang family of Beihai. This was the trump card that Wang Tianzong left for her. 6 devils from the Wang family of Beihai, and they had a very special position in the devil troop. They were one of the most important resources of the Wang family of Beihai. The 6 of them formed a formation. After being transformed and frozen, their strength was not as strong as before. But when the 6 of them attacked at the same time, their cooperation in an instant could still be said to be invincible. Summer Solstice had thought that this strike could seriously injure Li Tianlan. In addition to the injury caused by the Heaven Saber, even if he could defeat Dijiang in the end, he would certainly have little combat power. But now, when that clear light shone, she knew that she was wrong, and she was extremely wrong. The 6 devils injected all their energy into the sword formation in front of them. For Li Tianlan, it was not a trouble, but a real surprise. "Why is this happening?" Summer Solstice said softly, her voice almost whispering. "Who knows?" Lin Fengting said blandly, "If you force it to be explained, it can only be fate." He looked in the direction of the clear light and said softly, "You really had a chance to pull him into Mount Dibbing. It was the best chance. You would accept him, and he would fully accept you. He would join hands with Xing Shao, and with the assistance of Dijiang, the Wang family of Beihai would be truly invincible in the world, even surpassing the peak period. What a good opportunity." His voice was a little mocking. "But you gave up." Summer Solstice lowered her head and smiled a little miserably. "I think I know who Dongchen Huangtu is." Lin Fengting did not speak. In his sight, the clear light that illuminated the night spread unstoppably to the entire Scarlet Domain. He looked at it quietly, with a complicated look in his eyes. Li Tianlan was also looking at this clear light, and his eyes were a little gratified. This was not his sword energy. But it was his sword. The palm-sized Xianyuan sword was exquisite and perfect. Li Tianlan let go of it. The delicate black sword was floating and trembling in front of Li Tianlan, and endless clear light burst out from the sword. The dazzling light was heavy and clear, covering the entire domain. The sword energy of the 6 devils seemed to be absorbed by the clear light emitted by the Xianyuan sword in an instant. The devils stood where they were. The scarlet light constantly flashed in their eyes, as if expressing countless emotions. But their bodies were all stiff where they were. The red domain disappeared. The clear light dispelled all the scarlet. Looking from a distance, the domain covered by the light of the Xianyuan sword was like a huge and pure light shield. The light shield enveloped Li Tianlan and the 6 members of the devil troop. A strong and joyful mood was constantly being transmitted inside the light shield. All the remaining small swords in the 13-story building appeared around Li Tianlan. The black body of the Xianyuan sword shone more and more, like a crystal-clear black jade. The heartbreaking sword lit up. The stunning sword lit up. The aquamarine sword lit up. The sunset sword lit up. The silver moon sword lit up. The joyful mood became more and more obvious, and it was completely transmitted to Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan smiled. In the pure light, he smiled like a child. It was still raining heavily. Mount Dibbing was still gloomy. He stood in the extremely dazzling and pure light, stretched out his hand and waved. The 13-story building was broken in an instant. The remaining 6 swords flew out in a rush. All the swords lit up. The sword lights of various colors kept flashing in the pure light shield, becoming more and more obvious. It was an extremely gorgeous picture. In the hearts of everyone in the Wang family of Beihai, it was also an extremely horrifying picture. Summer Solstice was watching, Dijiang was watching, and Lin Fengting was watching. Wang Yuetong, Song Xiai, Tang Shi, and Wang Qinglei. Everyone was watching the picture, and no one spoke. In the dead silence, Dijiang, who stood in front of everyone, suddenly laughed. The solemnity condensed on him completely disappeared with his smile. His entire being suddenly became extremely relaxed. There was nothing to think about. The so-called luck, the so-called possibility, the so-called hope. There was no need to think about it. He looked at the light in the distance. The battle had not yet begun, but the result was already determined. Dijiang let go of everything. He turned around and looked at the people of the Wang family of Beihai behind him, and at the stone of formidable person facing the sea in the wind and rain on the stage of formidable person. After a long time, the corners of his mouth moved, but he did not speak. He slowly turned around and walked toward Li Tianlan. The clear sound that seemed to be breaking kept echoing in his body. It seemed to be breaking, but it also seemed to be growing. Dijiang's body relaxed, and so did his heart. He walked down the narrow steps, and as he went down, his figure became heavier and heavier. Lin Fengting's eyes slightly condensed, and he seemed to feel some pity. Dijiang, he whispered, he is indeed a genius. Summer Solstice was silent and did not speak. At the most critical moment, Dijiang, who had been tense and adjusting his state, let go of everything. He just wanted to fight. And the pure fighting intent completely bloomed when he was most relaxed, stimulating all his potential. He broke through. It was not the breakthrough of the realm, but the breakthrough of the body. He still had the combat capability of the invincible realm, but not the real invincible realm. At this moment, it was the dual thunder veins in his body that broke through. It also meant that Dijiang had completely broken through the last threshold to enter the invincible realm or even the peak of the invincible realm. Summer Solstice looked at Dijiang's back and the light in the distance, and suddenly said, I can talk to Li Tianlan. She stood up. Lin Fengting shook his head with a bitter smile. Now, the corner of his mouth moved. At this moment, he really wanted to ask Summer Solstice, what were you doing earlier? But when the words were on the tip of his tongue, he suddenly found that what he should ask most was what he had done earlier. If he had done it earlier, he would have been in a coma and could not remind Summer Solstice of anything. And even if he had, Summer Solstice might not have believed it. After all, some things were too incredible. Who could believe it without seeing it with their own eyes? He could understand Summer Solstice's thoughts. No one understood the 13 floors. No one in the Wang family of Beihai could even understand the Xianyuan sword. So Summer Solstice had the capital and qualification to persist. Li Tianlan broke through Beihai province, killed the Heaven Saber, and could even defeat Dijiang. But she was still there. She thought that if she killed Li Tianlan by force, Li Tianlan could not stop her. She did not want to die, and she believed that Li Tianlan did not want to die either. When both sides did not want to die, in a stalemate, even if the Wang family of Beihai negotiated, it was relatively equal. And now, with the appearance of the clear light, Li Tianlan was still no match for Summer Solstice. But the 13 floors was different from before. Wasn't it too late to negotiate with Li Tianlan at this time? It's not the right time yet, Lin Fengting whispered. Summer Solstice glanced at Lin Fengting and said expressionlessly, when is the right time? When Beihai has no choice but to bow its head and bear the humiliation, when he feels that it's enough. He won't destroy the Wang family, but he doesn't want to leave you any hope. Lin Fengting whispered, he has arrived at Mount Dibing. How can he negotiate before he comes up? He looked at Dijiang's back and whispered, let him go. The devil troop fell. Dijiang failed. Only when he really broke through everything and stood in front of the Wang family of Beihai, Li Tianlan's inner depression might be completely released and he would accept the so-called negotiation, or in other words, sue for peace. Everyone was looking into the distance. In the middle of the palace ruins in the distance, the clear light was still bright, but it had shrunk a lot. The light shield obliterated the domain of the devil troop and gradually shrank into a beam of light connecting heaven and earth. The 6 evil demons had silently disappeared along with the shrinking of the light barrier. Dijiang's figure was getting farther and faster. He walked out of the path, walked past the World Palace, walked past the only preserved palace behind Mount Dibing, and stood in front of the beam of light, looking calmer. This beam of light was extremely dazzling. Dijiang was very close to Li Tianlan, but he could not see Li Tianlan's expression at all. The beam of light shook slowly and gradually faded. In the endless light, Li Tianlan slowly walked out. The 13 floors floated around him, shining as if it was ushering in a real new life. Li Tianlan walked steadily and slowly. He looked at Dijiang, raised his eyebrows slightly, and asked, do you want to die? Chapter 657. No one thought Li Tianlan's words were arrogant. The 6 demons, who were thought to be able to bring Li Tianlan great trouble, fell silently. It was a process that was enough to make everyone in North Sea feel numb. To be exact, it was not even a battle, but the most terrifying devouring. The clear light occupied the demon domain and slowly shrank. After everything was over, the demon army also disappeared. Li Tianlan. 13th floor. The man and the sword were perfect. Mount Dibbing was desolate. There were ruins everywhere, silent and dilapidated. In the past few hundred years, this was the first time an outsider had come here to talk about life and death. It was so domineering and natural. Dijiang looked at Li Tianlan quietly and the delicate small swords floating around him. The black Xianyuan sword shone with a dim light, drifting outside Li Tianlan's sword qi. It was outside Li Tianlan's sword qi, but it could merge with it at any time. Such a Li Tianlan was very dangerous. Such a Xianyuan sword was even more dangerous. Dijiang suddenly realized that he was no match for the Xianyuan sword at this moment. He laughed softly and said calmly, "It's over. After you die." Li Tianlan said. Blue light shone on Dijiang's body bit by bit. Emperor Zhang's smile grew wider. "You dare kill me?" This was the first time Dijiang had called himself that. He was the marshal of Zhongzhou State and the commander of the Border Control Corps. No matter where he was, no matter what position he took, this identity would not change. Li Tianlan was also the marshal of Zhongzhou State. He killed Dijiang, which was not only touching the bottom line of the high-level officials of Zhongzhou State, but also blatantly stepping on the faces of all high-level officials of Zhongzhou State. Once such a thing happened, even Dongqing Wudi could not speak for him. "I won't kill you," Li Tianlan said calmly, "but the Wang family of Beihai will kill you. Not many people will understand you. Not many people will know that you are saving strength for the Wang family of Beihai. Even if they know, they may not accept it." Li Tianlan looked around and said, "Everything today, these ruins, these humiliation, is because you transferred the power of Mount Dibbing away in advance. This is what I brought to them, but it is also what you brought to them. No one will understand you. Even if I die, it will be a worthy death." Dijiang's voice grew calmer. "Unafraid of death?" Li Tianlan smiled. The 13-story pagoda slowly disappeared around him. He withdrew all the sword qi and suddenly said, "There is another position in Emperor Dong's palace. Are you interested?" He knew that he was talking nonsense, but in many cases, nonsense still had an extraordinary meaning. His voice echoed on Mount Dibbing and was transmitted to the ears of everyone on the stage of Formidable Person. "As long as you join Emperor Dong's palace, everything in Eastern Europe can be handed over to you." Li Tianlan's eyes were deep, and he said blandly, "In the future, Beihai province, the entire Beihai province, can also be handed over to you, to the Jiang family." The stage of Formidable Person was silent. Dijiang's expression changed abruptly. This sentence did not have much meaning at the moment. But once he failed, when all the curses were added to him, there would always be someone who would think of Li Tianlan's recruitment and huge promise, and there would always be someone who would bring it up. For example, Wang Qinglei and Wang Xiaoyao. In the hearts of everyone in Beihai, with Li Tianlan's words, Dijiang and even the Jiang family would always have another choice. This was something that no one wanted to see. Only the dead would not choose. Li Tianlan's words were tantamount to blocking all his chances after his failure. This was a real heart-wrenching remark. Dijiang took a deep breath. The amazing blue light spread from the soles of his feet to his whole body. An enormous power slowly surged, and the lightning surrounding him had already turned from a faint blue to an incomparably deep and demonic dark blue. Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows and smiled playfully. "Don't you want to think about it? You know the answer," Dijiang said blandly. At this moment, he finally remembered the first time they met in Heaven Capital more than 3 years ago. At that time, Li Tianlan was still very weak in his eyes. But now Li Tianlan, Dijiang suppressed his inner emotions and became more focused. "But they may not believe it," Li Tianlan said. "So," Dijiang laughed, and his voice was extremely free and easy. I won't have a future. This was the truth. He was no match for Li Tianlan. In today's battle, he and Mount Dibing were destined to fail. Afterward, whether the Wang family of Beihai wanted to save the influence or give an explanation to the outside world, Dijiang was destined to bear all the infamy and grievances. Dijiang would not join Emperor Dong's palace. At least now, many people were willing to believe in his loyalty. But after being helplessly given up, sacrificed, wronged, and bearing the infamy by the Wang family of Beihai, who would believe that Dijiang would be as firm as ever? Maybe they would want to believe it, but many people were not sure. Dijiang was truly invincible. With another breakthrough of the double thunder veins, he had paved the way to the peak of the invincible realm. Such a person, even if there was a slight possibility of joining East Emperor Palace, would make the Wang family of Beihai uneasy. So he could only die with countless grievances. This was not the will of the Wang family of Beihai. It was the will of the entire Beihai province. So standing here, Dijiang would not have a future, and he did not need to think about the future. Li Tianlan looked at him, expressionless. We are different. Dijiang said calmly, I have no future, but you do. You are the chosen one, shining brightly. Your future is unimaginable, so you have to consider a lot of things. The dark blue color continued to spread on him, getting deeper and deeper. The power was compressed to the extreme in the surging. The space twisted, with a clear sound. So you dare not kill me. Dijiang said, but I dare to kill you. Dijiang took a step forward. For a person who had no future, there was nothing he did not dare to do. There was no declaration of war, no warning. Dijiang came directly to Li Tianlan with one step. This step crossed a distance of dozens of meters. Wherever he passed, the stable space was completely shattered by the dark thunder. The pure and silent darkness slowly spread. In an instant, the thunder around Dijiang had become silent and deep black. There was only a fist wrapped in black lightning in front of Li Tianlan. The world was shaking. The extremely violent fist smashed the air with a harsh whistle, and the fierce killing intent shrouded down. There was violent and boiling power everywhere between heaven and earth. At this moment, Dijiang was completely a giant who could smash everything. Fast, simple, but with pure violence, destroying the world. He moved too fast. Li Tianlan seemed to have no time to draw his sword. Facing the thunderous fist, he raised his arm. Forward. Elbow strike. In the darkness, Mount Dibing suddenly sounded a loud dragon roar. Every joint of Li Tianlan's body was shaking wildly. Dragon fist, the dragon shows its head. The hard elbow hit Dijiang's fist in an instant with a weird curve. The black thunder kept falling and spreading in all directions. The night seemed to be injected with black water. The air was deformed and spread into obvious ripples. Li Tianlan and Dijiang's figures were almost close together. The moment his elbow hit Dijiang's fist, his bent arm suddenly stretched out. He clenched his fist. Sprinting. The wind and rain all over the sky, and the black thunder. Li Tianlan's body tightened, and his whole body seemed to be pulled over by this punch. The clenched fist penetrated everything, as fast as lightning. Dragon fist, azure dragon arrow. The distance between the two was too close. The moment Li Tianlan stretched out his arm, his fist almost touched Dijiang's Adam's apple. Within the distance of less than 2 centimeters, all the power broke out in the shortest distance in an instant. The breath of death rushed to Dijiang with a ferocious taste. Dijiang's upper body suddenly leaned back to the limit. He forcibly blocked Li Tianlan's fist with one hand, and supported the ground with the other hand in the process of leaning back. His legs surrounded by black lightning suddenly galloped like thunder. His body rose horizontally in an instant, spinning wildly. With great power, his legs swept to all the vital parts of Li Tianlan's body without hesitation. Li Tianlan's fist hit the air, and the space was completely shattered in the vibration. The pure power of the two had formed a pseudo-domain infinitely close to the domain of the invincible realm. In the pseudo-domain, Dijiang's speed was faster, and his power was more and more violent. Close combat. Close combat. This was the cruelest and most dangerous fight, the most violent and purest collision. The power that was enough to destroy everything came down with his legs, like a hurricane. Dijiang's power was too great, and his speed was too fast, even leaving a lot of afterimages. Li Tianlan's figure swayed slightly in the afterimages, also leaving afterimages. A lot of Dijiang and a lot of Li Tianlan appeared and disappeared at the same time, dazzling. He still didn't draw his sword. Like a hurricane, his legs swept faster and faster, and his figure suddenly rushed to the sky. He put his fingers together like a sword. His figure crossed the afterimages of Dijiang and was quiet in the air for a moment. Just for a moment, he was the king of the world. In an instant, the extremely sharp sword energy suddenly burst out from his closed fingers. An extremely pure dark blue flowing light crossed the air. The Wang family of Beihai. Sword of Emperor Path. Lin Fengting in the distance clearly saw this scene, and his eyes were extremely bitter. Everyone felt extremely complicated when they saw this scene. Li Tianlan. Dijiang. Dijiang's leg technique at this time. Li Tianlan's sword light at this time. The fight between the Li family and the Wang family of Beihai. At this moment, standing in the Wang family of Beihai, the leg technique Dijiang used was the unique technique of the Li family. But Li Tianlan used the kendo of the Wang family of Beihai. What kind of complicated entanglement was this? The dark thunderbolt and the dark blue sword light collided wildly. The 13-story building was completely silent. Hands and feet. The pure limbs kept colliding under the most violent power and speed. The afterimages and sword light all over the sky appeared and disappeared. Dijiang, who had completely entered the fighting state, looked fanatical, and his spirit was getting higher and higher. Li Tianlan's face was getting paler and paler, but his eyes were getting brighter and brighter like stars. His originally extremely swift body movement was getting stronger and stronger. Double fists. Legs. His figure rose into the air, getting faster and faster. Dijiang's legs had been spinning like a windmill, and the huge force tore the wind and rain, spreading to the field like a storm. Without any dodging, Li Tianlan's legs were also attacking. At this moment, he and Dijiang were using exactly the same unique technique. This was also the unique technique Li Tianlan knew best. Because this was the Li family's martial arts, the Li family's leg technique. Hurricane kick. A second storm suddenly appeared in the narrow battlefield that had a large area of effect. The gale tore up the ruins of the surrounding buildings. Attack, attack, attack. Their legs attacked at the same time. Head-on. Both sides used the same technique. When they collided, there was no technique. Li Tianlan's arms were covered with blood, and so were his legs. But Dijiang's state was getting better and more violent. Li Tianlan's movements gradually slowed down. But it was still hurricane kick. Li Tianlan's unique technique didn't change at all. His attack was gradually suppressed by Dijiang, and his counterattack was getting slower and slower. Without any suspense, when their legs collided again, Dijiang suddenly roared, and the power of the dual thunder veins that was superior to Li Tianlan's completely broke out. In the pure darkness, like flames and thunderbolts, Li Tianlan's figure was kicked out almost without any room to resist. The wind was whistling in his ears. At that moment, Li Tianlan clearly felt that something that had shrunk for a long time in his body was clearly straightening and slowly pulling in. Dijiang's figure was getting farther and farther away. Li Tianlan laughed, satisfied and satisfied. Dijiang also laughed. He didn't know why Li Tianlan fought with him like this. In his opinion, this was simply the stupidest way of fighting. Li Tianlan had the wind and thunder veins, while he had the dual thunder veins. But the martial arts of the Wang family of Beihai was about outbreak. When he broke out with all his strength, his speed was not much slower than Li Tianlan's, but the extreme power brought by the newly broken dual thunder veins was enough for him to completely suppress Li Tianlan. He didn't talk big just now. What he said was true. He had no future, so at this moment, Li Tianlan didn't dare to kill him. But he really dared to kill Li Tianlan. At all costs. Li Tianlan's figure was kicked out, flying in the air and retreating. Di Jiang took a deep breath. Without any hesitation, his body began to run up. His footsteps were getting faster and more violent. The unparalleled power kept shaking the earth. All the ruins within 100 meters were obviously shaking in the process of his sprint. Di Jiang's figure rose into the air. At the same time as him, a bright and dazzling knife light rose into the air. It didn't matter about close combat. It didn't matter about means. This was a battle of life and death. And Di Jiang also had a weapon. Jiang practiced the saber. Di Jiang also practiced the saber. Invincible saber. Eternal time. This was a move of extreme strength. With the support of his dual thunder veins, it was a real fatal move. The knife light tore the air apart and fell down with a long trace. Li Tianlan was also falling. His figure fell to the ground. The skin on his body was completely cracked. His arms and legs were covered with blood, which was black, like the blood clots that had existed in his body for a long time. The knife light fell on the top of his head. Li Tianlan reached out his hand. The fastest. The lightest. The steadiest. He put his palms together. The sharp sound and the huge power all over the sky disappeared completely. Li Tianlan clamped Di Jiang's knife with both hands. Di Jiang opened his eyes wide as if he couldn't believe it. And the hands clamping the blade were also exerting force at the same time. Such power was still not as good as Di Jiang's, but Di Jiang didn't feel much suppression of power. Li Tianlan raised his head, looked at Di Jiang's stunned expression, and laughed. His eyes were as bright as cold stars, extremely bright. "Thank you," he said softly. Chapter 658. Li Tianlan's tone was extremely sincere. Even his expression looked extremely sincere. A feeling that he hadn't felt for a long time slowly emerged in his body. It was a feeling of contentment and freedom. It seemed that until this moment, Li Tianlan had truly become perfect in martial arts. Di Jiang finally realized what had happened. The power in Li Tianlan's hands was increasing, and he felt more and more resistance. The corner of his mouth twitched. He looked at Li Tianlan and said hoarsely, "Dual wind and thunder veins." Li Tianlan looked into his eyes with a gentle expression. "This battle is very meaningful." After the final maneuver of the two academies, it was no longer a secret that Li Tianlan had dual wind and thunder veins. But few people knew that his dual wind and thunder veins had been almost destroyed in the battle with Black Ghost in Eastern Europe and turned into wind and thunder veins. It was difficult for Li Tianlan to explain what the so-called dual wind and thunder veins was. More than 3 years ago, he destroyed his wind and thunder veins in Huading in order to make a great breakthrough. But the destroyed wind and thunder veins kept changing during his 3-year journey. The most important thing was to realize the real nirvana in the polar region, which was the current dual wind and thunder veins. It didn't mean that Li Tianlan now had 2 thunder veins and wind veins. Such nirvana could be said to be a mutation in a sense. In the beginning, the wind and thunder veins were hidden in the flesh and blood, like 2 thick main veins, giving him speed and strength far superior to ordinary people all the time. The new wind and thunder veins were more like 2 small branches on the main trunk. All this had just begun, and it was extremely fragile. So in the battle in Eastern Europe, the new wind and thunder veins were completely broken, leaving only the natural wind and thunder veins to support. Li Tianlan had the dragon vein, and the huge luck meant endless vitality. Wisps of white mist were constantly repairing his body. This was not just repairing the injury, but the endless vitality made his body more and more perfect. The new wind and thunder veins were forcibly connected from the broken state under the nourishment of the dragon vein. But the injury at that time seemed to be really serious, so the new wind and thunder veins had been in a state of atrophy. Until today. In terms of overall combat capability, Di Jiang was no match for Li Tianlan. But Li Tianlan was competing with Di Jiang in strength, which was Di Jiang's strongest point. In the field of pure strength, Li Tianlan was almost at an absolute disadvantage and had been suppressed in all aspects. The violent suppression constantly stimulated the atrophied wind and thunder veins in his body, and at the same time, stimulated his potential. Li Tianlan could clearly feel the changes in his body. The atrophied new wind and thunder veins stretched little by little under the absolute suppression and stimulation, and the clotted blood that troubled the wind and thunder veins completely flowed out. The dual wind and thunder veins were completely reconstructed under Di Jiang's suppression. Li Tianlan's strength and speed had reached a new peak in an instant. Today, Li Tianlan was still no match for Di Jiang in terms of strength, but he was no longer in a situation where he was absolutely suppressed. The reconstructed dual wind and thunder veins still had a lot of room for growth. Li Tianlan was very satisfied with all this. You lost. Li Tianlan clamped Di Jiang's saber, and there was a natural calmness in his words. Di Jiang's expression suddenly twisted. No matter how good his mentality was, he still lost his composure at this moment. He went all out and recklessly, but in the end, it became an assist and made the opponent more powerful. His voice was ferocious and manic, a little hysterical. I don't accept this. His voice was loud and fierce. The bright blades suddenly shook, and the messy saber light burst out. In Li Tianlan's sight, Di Jiang's entire upper body seemed to be expanding, and the muscles of his arms were clearly visible. All the strength was instantly poured into the blade that was clenched in both hands. Di Jiang roared, and with the black thunderbolts flying all over the sky, he chopped down hard. Crack! A clear cracking sound rang out. Li Tianlan's eyes were extremely cold. Under the full force of Di Jiang, he suddenly twisted his hands that clamped the blade. The full force of the two worked together and directly broke the long saber in Di Jiang's hand. Di Jiang held the broken saber with both hands, and it almost slid down from the tip of Li Tianlan's nose. The broken saber lost control and rushed to the side. Li Tianlan's figure retreated leisurely. It was like a wisp of smoke, and also like an extremely illusory shadow. Di Jiang's short saber fell to the ground. The mountain collapsed and the earth cracked. In an instant, centered on the falling point of this saber, the road within hundreds of meters of Mount Dibbing suddenly exploded. The surrounding ruins of the palace rushed into the sky under the huge force and were shattered. There were many ferocious and deep cracks on the smooth road. The whole Mount Dibbing seemed to be shaking under this saber. The huge cracks tore the earth and spread wildly. Countless boulders and dust condensed with saber light rushed into the air, like a huge wave rising to the sky, surging and overwhelming, and smashing toward Li Tianlan. This was the real divine power that shocked the sky. Li Tianlan's figure paused. The crazy power and the dark thunderbolts were completely suppressed by the ruins that swept up. The moment Li Tianlan's figure was blocked, the sword light all over the sky suddenly rose to the sky. The sword light was pure and clear, crystal clear, but there was a kind of resolute atmosphere between the sword light. This was not any sword of the 13th floor. This was amber. The amber that belonged to the Jiang family. It seemed that he thought of the Jiang family and the fallen heaven saber. Di Jiang's momentum almost rose wildly out of control. The unparalleled fury made his eyes red. His body tightened, and every bone in his body kept groaning because of the huge pressure. Di Jiang didn't care at all, and he raised his strength at all costs. The amber-colored sword light shattered the heavy and domineering waves. The blooming brilliance instantly tore up the black thunderbolts in the sky. Di Jiang saw Li Tianlan step forward. As soon as his consciousness received this message, the amber sword blade had left a long mark on his body. Fast. Incredibly fast. That was unimaginably agile. It seemed that Li Tianlan had only taken one step forward, but the blade had already left a wound on him, and Li Tianlan had already appeared behind Di Jiang. The broken saber swept across. Before the blood gushed out of the wound, the broken saber had drawn a perfect circle around Di Jiang's body. Step back. Move forward. It was an understatement. The dual wind and thunder veins were reactivated, and they were more powerful than before. Li Tianlan was much stronger than before, whether in strength or speed. The amber was still shining. In the crystal sword light, Li Tianlan's every move at this moment was without the slightest trace of fire. He avoided the saber light and took a step forward. The next second, the broken saber broke again. Countless fragments flew into the air, shining with the sharp light of the sword. The fragments of the broken saber cut Dijiang's body. Dijiang had let go of everything. The violent power surged like the roaring sea, covering an area of nearly 100 meters. It was the power that could destroy everything. His eyes were extremely pure. Hatred, humiliation, responsibility, and indignation. He let go of all of them, but he didn't let go of all of them. His figure moved forward. Step forward. Run. Sprint. At this moment, he only thought about his own strength. He only wanted to fight. He only wanted to die. The crazy power drove his body to appear directly in front of Li Tianlan. All the space within a radius of 100 meters was completely shattered. The air twisted violently, and the shattered space collapsed inward. The extreme destructive power shrouded Li Tianlan in an instant. Li Tianlan raised his palm slightly. Still calm and collected. Still an understatement. Tianguang's spirit-locking platform was high-spirited. The divine weapon broke through the sky, majestic and domineering. Kanglin's sky-chopping saber was insufferably arrogant. Li Tianlan walked through Beihai and broke through everything. Floating Island, Liuli, Empress, Shenzhou. And then to Mount Dibing. Li Tianlan was different in every city. Li Tianlan had never been as calm as he was now. Indifferent and leisurely, quiet and far away, calm and peaceful. Perhaps at this moment, he didn't realize it. Only now was he really perfect. And invincible. He raised his palm, neither fast nor slow, calm and almost elegant. The dazzling sword light flashed. A sword intent appeared at the edge of Dijiang's domain. Li Tianlan's figure disappeared. The next second, his figure appeared outside Dijiang's domain. And that sword intent appeared in front of Dijiang and turned into Li Tianlan's appearance. Boom! A fierce fist burst out with black flames all over the sky. Li Tianlan's figure formed by the sword intent was broken, and countless sword energy also penetrated Dijiang's body at the same time. Blood gushed out. Dijiang only felt a ball of fire burning inside him, burning his body and burning his reason. He looked up at where Li Tianlan was, with the fighting intent that had never been extinguished in his pupils. 100 meters away. Dijiang stretched out his palm and said slowly, "I'll kill you for the ancestor." A gust of wind suddenly rose. The wind blowing in the opposite direction rushed through the night sky, rolling up the wind and rain. The raindrops all over the sky completely froze in an instant. The frozen cold spread from afar, covering the space of hundreds of meters in the blink of an eye, also surrounding Li Tianlan. It was almost frozen cold. It was invisible and intangible, but extremely awe-inspiring. The blazing white flame burned in Dijiang's hand, and finally turned into dark thunderbolt. Dijiang's whole body was shining. At this moment, there was gust of wind, rainstorm, flame, and thunderbolt. Even this world was all power. Dijiang stretched out his hand almost piously and made a gesture of drawing a knife. The pure dark thunderbolt almost condensed into a substance in his hand, turning into a blade. Li Tianlan watched quietly and suddenly felt a little bored. This knife was very strange, but very familiar. Although the starting gesture was different, there was no essential difference in the knife he saw in Kanglin. Dijiang was the disciple of Sword Emperor, but what Wang Tianzong taught him was still the knife of Jiang family, which was most suitable for double thunder veins. 3 invincible knives of Jiang family. Ages had passed. Only Qianqiu was left. Only the Great Tribulation was left. Dijiang held the blade condensed by thunderbolt and gathered it over his head. In an instant, all the power between heaven and earth was gathering toward him crazily. Di Jiang's body became extremely tall. It was not an illusion, but under the extreme power, his body really expanded for a short time. At a distance of hundreds of meters, Di Jiang's momentum instantly reached an all-time peak. Go to hell. The black blade chopped down. This was Jiang family's invincible knife. It was Beihai's full outbreak. The dark blade was like light and lightning. At this moment, there was no knife light. The blade condensed by thunderbolt in Di Jiang's hand extended wildly in his hand, and in a flash, it had extended to a distance of hundreds of meters. The pitch-black blade trembled slightly and crazily. Every tremble was equivalent to Di Jiang's most powerful knife. Just in an instant, Di Jiang's blade had trembled hundreds of times. The completely chaotic power filled everything. Mount Dibing, which was already in ruins, became more and more broken under the blade. Li Tianlan watched in silence. This knife was the tribulation of 1,000 years. It was the combination of two invincible knives. In terms of the abundance of knife intent, this knife was still not as good as the heaven knife at that time. But the knife that Di Jiang, who was at his peak, gave up everything and wielded had surpassed DK in terms of power. It would not stop until one of them died. If he didn't use all his strength, Li Tianlan couldn't block this knife. But it didn't matter whether he could block it or not. The blade trembled in the air, and the almost unparalleled power destroyed heaven and earth. Li Tianlan took a step forward. His figure disappeared. The dark blade extended to a length of hundreds of meters, fiercely chopping from the sky to the ground. The earth shook and the mountains shook. Almost everything on Mount Dibing had been completely smashed. This knife almost drained all of Di Jiang's essence, qi, and spirit. There was no trace of power in his body. He froze in place and was silent for a long time. Li Tianlan was already standing behind him. He put one hand on Di Jiang's shoulder, and his killing intent was hidden. Li Tianlan was too fast now. He couldn't block this knife, but he could completely avoid it. Avoiding was not escaping. He appeared directly behind Di Jiang. At this moment, all the vital parts of Di Jiang's body were under his control. Why is it so fast? Di Jiang's voice was extremely hoarse. Li Tianlan's voice was still calm, without any anger. It's you who are too slow. Boom! The huge power fell on Di Jiang's extremely weak body. Di Jiang, who had been drained of all his strength by the knife, softened and curled up uncontrollably. Kneel down. Li Tianlan whispered. Di Jiang's knees had been completely bent. He couldn't resist the power of Li Tianlan's hand. But the moment before his knees were about to kneel, he suddenly roared and tried his best to rush forward. His body was lying on the ground, beaten by the crazy night rain. He was extremely embarrassed and looked extremely ugly. It's much uglier than kneeling down. Li Tianlan said, "You look like a useless dog." Dog? Di Jiang laughed. His voice was hoarse, and he said word by word, "Even if I am a dog, I am a dog of Beihai, not a dog that kneels in front of you." Li Tianlan was silent for a while. It was hard for them to get close to the stage of formidable person. Li Tianlan could see the figure on the stage of formidable person. The figure on the stage of formidable person could also see him. It was extremely clear. Under everyone's gaze, Li Tianlan slowly squatted down. The corner of his mouth moved slightly, as if he was saying something. He said it for a long time, very seriously and sincerely. Di Jiang's ears were completely silent. But Li Tianlan seemed to keep talking. After a long time, Di Jiang suddenly understood something. He laughed miserably. At this moment, he was sure. It was not that he couldn't hear it. It was that Li Tianlan, who seemed to be saying something, actually said nothing. It was so despicable. Li Tianlan slowly stood up. On the stage of formidable person, most people were guessing what Li Tianlan had said to Di Jiang. Among the silent but thoughtful crowd, only one person was moving forward. Her figure was ethereal. She walked down the steps and stepped into the sky. The ethereal and poignant sword light lit up. It was beautiful, but it was extremely determined and silent. The sword light was mixed with extremely bright lightning. She and the sword flew across the sky, and the blade flew toward Li Tianlan. The poignant sword light illuminated Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan watched it quietly without dodging. He gazed deeply at the sword light. Because the sword light illuminated Wang Yuedong's face. Chapter 659. The flying sword light turned from bright to dazzling. On Mount Dibbing in the wind and rain, the blue light that pierced the sky seemed to be the only light between heaven and earth. Li Tianlan raised his head and watched the sword light approach from afar. It was the most poignant and beautiful sword light he had ever seen. It was shining, determined, heartbroken, helpless, but with the last persistence of Mount Dibbing. The sword light was reflected on Wang Yuedong's face. Her beautiful face became clearer and clearer. Crystal tears mixed with the wind and rain. Her eyes were a little desperate, but the sword carried the power that she could not take back. It went straight forward. No one could understand Wang Yuedong's inner feelings at this moment. Summer solstice couldn't, and neither could Li Tianlan. In this world, if one didn't experience many things personally, one wouldn't feel the so-called empathy at all. Li Tianlan looked at Wang Yuetong with tears in his eyes. He looked at her helplessness and persistence. The cold rain was falling. She was desperate. At this moment, Li Tianlan's mind was full of one sentence. If only life was like the first time we met. The poignant and stubborn sword light flew all the way with a madness that was close to despair. Li Tianlan laughed. She was his woman. And the sword fell on his heart at this time. He saw it with his own eyes. It was the most poignant and beautiful sword. But he thought of Dongqing Rushi. In that manner, facing the devil troop and the Beihai Corps, Dongqing Rushi resolutely drew out her sword. How beautiful was the sword light when it was quietly unsheathed. Nostalgia and despair, helplessness and reluctance. They were all beautiful. In the wind and rain, Li Tianlan smiled and straightened his chest, aiming his heart at the sword edge. The blue light fell in front of Li Tianlan like a meteor. The sword light kept spreading out, but it was suppressed and shrank back. The sword edge pierced Li Tianlan's clothes. The tip of the sword was close to Li Tianlan's flesh. But there was no blood. The extremely stable blue light trembled violently. Wang Yuetong bit her lip, and blood flowed down the corner of her mouth. Li Tianlan looked at her, and his smile was extremely calm. Why don't you hide? Hide! Wang Yuetong cried out. Countless preparations, countless bravery, and all the resoluteness had disappeared in the process of the sword light leaping over. Wang Yuedong's arms trembled. She completely broke down and burst into tears. The tip of the sword gently pressed against the skin on his chest. Li Tianlan's smile was like a mask. What about you? Why didn't you stab it in? Just a little more. The tip of the sword could pierce Li Tianlan's chest and then penetrate his whole body. But Wang Yuetong stopped. Her sword stopped stiffly in Li Tianlan's chest. Her arms trembled, and the sharp sword light became extremely scattered. Her emotions were like scattered sword lights, and the calmness that she had pretended to be shattered at this moment. She gritted her teeth and cried, I don't have any strength left. Then get out of my way. Li Tianlan said quietly. He let Wang Yuedong's sword point at his chest and looked up at the stage of formidable person. It was only a distance of 200 meters. But in the dark of the night, he could still clearly see everyone's expressions. Panic, solemnity, anger, calmness, and hatred. On the quaint and narrow stone platform, the stone of formidable person, carved with hundreds of years of glory of Beihai, stood there, facing the wind and rain, silent and calm. Go back. Wang Yuetong bit her lip and sobbed in a low voice. Her voice was pleading, please, Tianlan. Li Tianlan looked at her quietly. Wang Yuedong's eyes were extremely weak. She used to think that she could be strong, so she did not beg Li Tianlan to go back when they met before. She thought that she could face everything. But at this moment, when the tip of the sword really touched Li Tianlan's skin, the severe pain seemed to completely tear her body apart. Behind her was the stage of formidable person. Dijiang was defeated. The 7 sword-holding families were defeated. She stood in front of Li Tianlan. She was no longer herself. She was the last insistence of the entire Wang family of Beihai. She had to make a move. But she really couldn't. Li Tianlan could not feel Wang Yuedong's emotional collapse. But he could roughly understand her feelings. His smile faded little by little, and his whole person became extremely cold. No. He shook his head and looked into Wang Yuedong's eyes. Get out of the way. Wang Yuetong shook her head desperately, tears splashing out. Do you know why I didn't hide? Li Tianlan said quietly, because I know very well that even if I didn't hide, I wouldn't die. At most, I would be seriously injured. He thought of their first meeting again. You and I shouldn't have met. From the beginning, it was a mistake. No, it's not. Wang Yuedong's figure trembled violently. She held the sword with one hand, unable to put it down or stab forward, while the other hand covered her chest, which was almost out of breath because of the pain. She was very afraid of Li Tianlan like this. He was too calm and too indifferent, as if he was a kind of extreme reason that could abandon everything. Just take it that I let you down. Li Tianlan looked at the sword in front of his chest and said calmly, I'll feel better if you stab me. Please don't say that, okay? Wang Yuedong's body trembled, and her eyes grew dimmer. Li Tianlan was silent for a while. He seemed to want to say a lot more, but he finally fell silent. In the silence, he took a step forward against the sharp tip of the sword. The sword against his chest did not stab in. Wang Yuetong also took a step back. Please don't do this. Tianlan, Wang Yuetong shook her head hard. She had bitten her lip so hard that blood came out, which was shocking. Please. Li Tianlan did not speak. Facing the bright sword edge, his pace was extremely stable, and he kept moving forward without any hesitation. He was moving forward. Wang Yuetong was retreating. The sword edge was always close to Li Tianlan, but it never stabbed in. Li Tianlan looked at Wang Yuetong. Looking at her face full of panic, looking at her bewilderment, looking at her helplessness, looking at her despair, looking at her tears, looking at her giving up her dignity in front of everyone, giving up everything and begging her bitterly. He kept moving forward. Every step he took seemed to step on Wang Yuedong's reserve and pride. The nobility of the little princess of the Wang family of Beihai seemed to become fragmented and humble under his feet. Wang Yuetong never put down her sword. She did not mind being humble in front of Li Tianlan. But if she put down her sword, it meant that the Wang family of Beihai had lost its last persistence. What kind of contradictory scene was this? One moved forward and the other retreated. The two of them walked 100 meters. They were so close, separated by the wind, rain, and sword light. The sword light was shining. The wind and rain were dim. Everything was cold. Li Tianlan's heart twitched fiercely. The woman in front of him was his woman. She held the sword against his chest and kept crying. Every drop of her tears seemed to leave wounds in his heart. There was a flash of anger in his eyes. As he moved forward, he suddenly looked up and stared at every figure on the stage of formidable person. Can the dignified Wang family of Beihai only send one woman at this critical moment? His voice was like a surging tsunami or a thunder sweeping through the sky, majestically suppressing everything. Who dares to fight with me? Come out. Does the Wang family of Beihai who only knows how to hide behind a woman deserve to be called the first family in the dark world? Bullshit. His eyes were extremely arrogant. His voice was extremely contemptuous. All the humiliation fell on the heads of all the people of the Wang family of Beihai after they lost the barrier. Bastard! In the furious voice, a burly figure on the edge of Mount Dibing suddenly rushed toward Li Tianlan. Strong electric light burst out from him. Wang family of Beihai, code name Tide. The burly figure strode forward faster and faster. I'll kill you. Li Tianlan's eyes became extremely cold in an instant. The ghastly killing intent suddenly spread out with sword intent. At this moment, Li Tianlan's expression was still calm. But during the hundreds of meters of advance and retreat, every drop of Wang Yuedong's tears was like the hottest oil, constantly pouring on the fire in his heart. Such a Beihai province. Such a Wang family of Beihai. Ha! There was the invincible sword emperor here. He was talented and bold. He was amazing. There was the calm and open-minded Heaven Saber DK, who was calm and indifferent. He also appreciated Di Jiang's bravery and loyalty from the bottom of his heart. The Wang family of Beihai was too big. There were a lot of people he liked here. There were also a lot of people he didn't like. When the enemy was in front of them, the huge Wang family of Beihai actually put all its persistence on a young woman. They hit on the stage of formidable person. They stood behind Wang Yuetong. It was quiet. Li Tianlan looked at the crowd in the dark. Why did he take it for granted? He raised his palm indifferently. The wind and rain rolled all over the sky, and the endless rain seemed to connect into a line in an instant. The sword light shone in the rain. Li Tianlan waved his palm. The rain with sword energy suddenly appeared in front of Tide. The soft rain cut the tears, went all the way down, and cut his body in an instant. Blood burst out all over the sky. Li Tianlan strode forward faster and faster. Wang Yuetong kept retreating, and her hand holding the long sword kept shaking. Who else wants to die? Li Tianlan's voice was calm, but there was a touch of extreme sharpness. No one spoke. At this moment, everyone could feel Li Tianlan's undisguised killing intent. The young Donghuang seemed to be completely enraged by Wang Yuedong's embarrassment. At this moment, whoever dared to step forward would almost end up like Tide. Don't kill anymore. Why are you doing this? Wang Yuetong cried louder. Li Tianlan looked at her deeply. He could see her embarrassment and struggle. The people of the Wang family of Beihai could also see it. But no one spoke on the silent stage of formidable person. Li Tianlan laughed. At this moment, Wang Yuetong carried all the persistence of the Wang family of Beihai, the last persistence. There must be an explanation for such persistence. The Wang family of Beihai could not give such an explanation. But Li Tianlan could. Everything that happened today. Li Tianlan looked into Wang Yuedong's eyes. I'm sorry. But at the same time, the Wang family of Beihai is sorry. He looked at the stage of formidable person getting closer and closer. He fought through Beihai and passed by one city after another for this goal. He had come here. No one could stop him from moving forward. Not Wang Yuetong. Not Lin Fengting. Not either. Li Tianlan reached out his hand. He reached out his hand to Wang Yuetong. The bright and slender sword still stood in front of them. The long sword was very long. He seemed to want to touch Wang Yuedong's face. But the long sword that represented too many things separated them from each other. His palm was always a little bit away from Wang Yuedong's face. Li Tianlan smiled and said softly, I'll give you the explanation you want to give to Beihai. He suddenly clenched his palm. The sharp sword energy suddenly scattered and then gathered quickly. A wild wind blew under the heavy rain. The wind with sword energy blew the space, and the whole world seemed to be compressed. The heavy but not sharp sword energy controlled Wang Yuedong's body in an instant. Wang Yuetong opened her eyes wide in horror and screamed, No! The sword energy fell on her and on her hand. The invisible sword energy pushed her forward with an irresistible force. Only one step. Swoosh! With a dull sound, the bright sword blade pierced into Li Tianlan's chest and came out from his back. Wang Yuedong's eyes turned red in an instant. She loosened her grip on the sword, and her body trembled. Li Tianlan's palm touched Wang Yuetong's face. It was so soft and gentle. Wang Yuetong looked at him with dull eyes. At this moment, it seemed that everything had lost its meaning. Li Tianlan, whose mouth was bleeding, looked at the sword blade trembling slightly in his chest and narrowed his eyes. At that moment, he forcibly controlled Wang Yuetong's body and the sword in her hand. He voluntarily let Wang Yuetong pierce his body with the sword. Maybe it was only a centimeter away, and the sword would have pierced his heart. This feeling, he laughed. It hurts. A dense white mist slowly appeared around him. The last trace of worry in Li Tianlan's eyes completely disappeared. He looked at the stage of formidable person, his eyes full of indifference and firmness. His body tensed up slightly, and in front of everyone's eyes, his arms suddenly shook. Crack. With a clear cracking sound, the long sword in Li Tianlan's chest suddenly broke. The broken long sword fell at Li Tianlan's feet, and the sword blade that came out from his back flew out. Li Tianlan spat out a mouthful of blood. More blood flowed from his chest. Tianlan. The dull Wang Yuetong finally came to her senses and rushed to Li Tianlan, but she did not dare to touch him. In a very short time, the blood flowing out of Li Tianlan's chest had slowed down a lot. The sword wound was still badly mutilated and could not heal for the time being. But Li Tianlan's breath, which had suddenly weakened for a moment, became stable again. Tianlan, Wang Yuetong's voice was chaotic and crazy. Li Tianlan took her palm and pulled her body over. He reached out and lifted her face. Looking at the dazed, chaotic and a little crazy eyes, he ordered, "Close your eyes." Wang Yuetong's long eyelashes gently trembled in the wind and rain, but she tried to keep her eyes open. Li Tianlan lowered his head and kissed her slowly but firmly in everyone's sight. Chapter 660. The corners of Wang Yuetong's lips were soft and slightly cool. There was a smell of blood in the fragrance, like rose petals stained with blood. The wind and rain raged on Mount Dibing. Wang Yuetong opened her eyes wide, watching Li Tianlan hold her in his arms and hold her waist. His palms were constantly exerting force, hot and warm. Feeling each other's breath, Wang Yuetong's long eyelashes fluttered. Finally, she closed her eyes and put her hands around Li Tianlan's neck. Strong wind, heavy rain, night. Blood and ruins. The solemn crowd. The world was like a background full of darkness and depression. The young man and woman who had each other held each other tightly, completely forgetting themselves. In the flashing lightning, this was destined to be a scene that everyone would remember for a lifetime. It was like attachment, but also like parting. Wang Yuetong closed her eyes, grabbed Li Tianlan, and bit his lips hard. Her tears seemed to have run out. Her body became extremely cold. The blood on Li Tianlan's chest was still flowing, falling on her body, which was shocking. That sword strike was her explanation to Beihai. It was also Li Tianlan's explanation to her. The slowly flowing blood gradually solidified. Wang Yuetong held Li Tianlan tightly, as if she wanted to engrave his breath into her blood. Li Tianlan slowly let go of her, looked at her face, and did not speak for a long time. Her face was pale, and her eyes were red because of crying. Her spirit was getting more and more haggard. The sobbing not long ago seemed to have completely calmed down. Her bloodshot eyes were empty and deathly still, as quiet as a grave. She looked at Li Tianlan quietly, reached out her hand gently, and smiled. Tianlan, Wang Yuetong's voice was soft and extremely steady. Her emotions seemed to have calmed down, or she had no emotions at all. Her slender fingers gently touched the wound on her chest. Wang Yuetong's smile was pale and desperate. This is not my explanation to the Wang family of Beihai, at least not all of it. Her voice grew quieter and quieter, but a faintly discernible light began to radiate from her eyes. It was extremely stubborn and unyielding. Li Tianlan's heart gradually sank, but he did not say anything. Actually, I don't need to explain to the Wang family of Beihai. Do you understand? I'm a part of this place. Standing here is my duty, my responsibility. It's an innate responsibility that I can't escape from. I've lived here since I was young. This is my home. You are my enemy. If I don't stand in front of you, then I owe you. I can't repay such a debt. Li Tianlan looked at her quietly. He saw the light in her eyes become firm and clear. It was a choice. Unshakable and decisive. Actually, you don't owe me anything. In any case, I don't think you owe me anything. No matter what you think, you've already paid me back for that sword attack. I respect your choice. She slowly retreated. The palm stained with Li Tianlan's blood opened. The broken sword reappeared in his hand. The distance between the two grew further and further. She stared at Li Tianlan seriously. You can do whatever you want. You can destroy Mount Dibing, but before that, you must destroy me first. Because I'm the daughter of the Wang family of Beihai. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes and watched Wang Yuetong retreat further and further. At this moment, in the tragic and almost cruel situation, she finally made her choice. Between Li Tianlan and the Wang family of Beihai, she chose the Wang family of Beihai. Just like many times before, she chose Li Tianlan between the Wang family of Beihai and Li Tianlan. At any time, she had her own insistence. Li Tianlan's reaction was very calm. There was no sadness or hesitation. You should remember one thing. You're not only the daughter of the Wang family of Beihai, but also my woman. Li Tianlan looked at her and said in a calm but irresistible voice, You're my woman, so you should listen to me. Wang Yuetong was still retreating. She shook her head and wanted to say, I'm not your woman anymore. But Li Tianlan didn't give her a chance. He looked over Wang Yuetong at the stage of formidable person, which was close behind her, and reached out his hand. You respect my choice, and I respect yours. He said expressionlessly, so now you have to be obedient. Wang Yuetong's figure suddenly shook. There was nothing behind her, but in an instant, a vortex formed by extremely twisted air directly surrounded her. The twisted space kept shaking, and finally formed a vortex with a radius of about 10 meters. The vortex rotated slowly, trapping Wang Yuetong in it. Wang Yuetong, whose face changed dramatically, suddenly realized something. She raised the broken sword in her hand without hesitation, and the dazzling lightning instantly covered the entire vortex. The vortex was still rotating slowly. The lightning driven by Wang Yuetong disappeared in an instant. A trace of panic flashed in Wang Yuetong's eyes. The sword energy condensed on the blade of the broken sword, and she stabbed straight ahead. The slowly rotating vortex was extremely real, but also extremely illusory. The blade stabbed into the vortex, but it drove Wang Yuetong's body to rotate. The condensed and twisted vortex was completely unbreakable for her. Confinement. Li Tianlan's figure passed by Wang Yuetong and walked toward the stage of formidable person. Let me out. Tianlan, let me out, let me out. Wang Yuetong's crisp voice sounded extremely sharp because of her excessive impatience. Li Tianlan ignored her and didn't look back. Let me out. You can't do this to me. I'm not your woman. I'm not anymore. The wind and rain raged. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. In the storm, Li Tianlan stepped on the steps of Zhuanyuantai. The ancient steps went all the way up with a subtle slope. At the end was the stone of formidable person. Are you sure you want to do this? Summer Solstice's voice floated down quietly. The Wang family of Beihai owes a lot of people an explanation. Li Tianlan took the second step. I'll take it today. Go back. This is not an enemy you are qualified to face. In the furious roar, countless figures rushed out of the ruins behind Li Tianlan. Wang Donghu, Li Tianlan, Deputy Minister of Beihai Internal Defense Force, come and fight with me. Come on. Wang Huatu, Field Division Commander of Beihai Corps, get down here, and I'll spare your life. Little bastard of the Li family, your father is here. Get down here and kowtow. Heavenly son of a bitch. F*CKU, come and fight with me for 300 rounds. Groups after groups of figures appeared. A large number of figures rushed and charged in the night rain. The ruins of Mount Dibbing kept shaking. The dazzling lights suddenly lit up on Mount Dibbing. More and more people rushed to the stage of formidable person. Insults, provocations, and all kinds of ugly words filled everyone's ears in an instant. The first group of people who rushed over cursed and rushed to the stage of formidable person without hesitation. More and more people were still rushing over. Summer Solstice's face suddenly changed and became extremely ugly. Dijiang transferred all the people in Mount Dibbing away. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. She also acquiesced. Therefore, in the current Mount Dibbing, except for Dijiang, Wang Yuetong, and the 6 devils lying in ambush on Mount Dibbing, there was no other power. And now this group of people came from the foot of the mountain. In other words, they came from the troops that had gone to Kanglan and the floating island. No one thought that so many people would turn around and come back in the middle of the journey. But everyone could understand that by standing here, they not only violated the order of the Wang family of Beihai, but also the military order of the army headquarters of Zhongzhou State. Military orders must be obeyed. Tianlan. No. Wang Yuetong kept hitting the whirlpool around her. Her voice was a little frightened. Her sharp voice was instantly suppressed by a lot of insults. On the stage of formidable person, Li Tianlan turned around and looked at the surging crowd. High-level officers, middle-level officers, and grassroots elites were densely packed. The deputy minister of the Internal Defense Force of Beihai, who rushed to the stage of formidable person first, was less than 50 meters away from Li Tianlan. This middle-aged man, who looked to be nearly 50 years old, was shining with lightning. His body was burly and majestic. He roared and kept charging, defending the most sacred place on Mount Dibbing. His eyes were full of determination. Countless people followed behind him. Charging forward. Charging forward. Regardless of everything. Without hesitation. This could be said to be a heroic charge. It was fanatical, heroic, and could even be said to be worthy of praise and tears. Li Tianlan looked at them. His expression was as calm as a mask. "You all want to die," he said in a calm voice. It was not a question, but an affirmative sentence. Before his voice died away, Wang Donghu, the deputy minister of the Internal Defense Force of Beihai, who rushed to the front, had directly rushed over. With all the strength in his body, he roared and smashed directly at Li Tianlan. Bang! The hard fist slammed into Li Tianlan's palm. Li Tianlan's body lit up. It was incomparably illusory and real. The soaring sword light illuminated the stage of formidable person. The gushing blood suddenly burst out under the shining sword light, like a smashed watermelon. The red juice kept flying against the wind and rain, and the white broken bones were spread on the stage of formidable person. Wang Donghu's body disappeared. The blood and broken flesh on the ground were the last traces of his existence. There was no hesitation or hesitation. Decisive, indifferent, and vicious. Li Tianlan just stood there, facing the charging crowd in endless anger. The surging sword light was getting brighter and brighter. The sword light suppressed the lightning and the flame, becoming the only light on Mount Dibbing. Bang! Another high-level member of the Wang family of Beihai exploded in front of Li Tianlan. Countless figures rushed forward in an endless stream. Everyone seemed to be completely crazy. With red eyes, gritted teeth, and ferocious expressions, they rushed over with their most powerful attacks. No one thought about life and death anymore. The only thought in everyone's mind was to attack. Even if they died, they would make their attacks fall on Li Tianlan. Kill! 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 Kill him! Tear him apart! The experts of the Wang family of Beihai at the front exploded one after another. A steady stream of elites rushed up from the back like crazy demons, completely in a state of desperate charge. Go back! All of you go back! Don't kill anymore, Tianlan, I beg you, don't kill anymore. Summer Solstice's stern voice and Wang Yuedong's desperate voice echoed in the fanatical roar, shattering the wind and rain. The charging crowd did not waver. Rush forward. Attack. Death. Madness. Because this was the stage of formidable person. It was the holy land that their ancestors had guarded for hundreds of years. No one could desecrate this place. Li Tianlan was an enemy. He stood on the stage of formidable person, so he was a mortal enemy. Kill him. Bite him to death. Tear him to pieces. In the earth-shaking roar, Li Tianlan was indifferent like a machine born for killing. The roar in front of him, which was powerful enough to shake the soul, did not make him waver or fear. A large number of crazy people rushed to his current position at the risk of their lives, which added a touch of unparalleled fierceness to his heart. None of you are afraid of death. Then all of you should die. The narrow stage of formidable person suddenly lit up with a sword light that almost filled the entire passageway. The majestic sword light surged like a tide, stirring crazily. Countless people rushed up and died in the sword light. More and more people rushed forward. They died in the sword light again. Continue to rush. Kill again. Kill again. Kill again. At this moment, there was only death in front of Li Tianlan. High morale, a heroic charge, and a brave death. If you want to die, then go to hell. Tonight, Li Tianlan completely showed his most ruthless side. Blood and broken bones were all over the passageway of the Xianyuan platform, washed down by the rain. Blood flowed like a river. If a human stood in his way, he would kill a ghost. Countless elites of the Wang family of Beihai rushed up and died in the sword light. From beginning to end, Li Tianlan stood in his position, motionless. The sword light illuminated his whole body, making him extremely dazzling in the dark night. His face was full of chilling indifference, without a trace of hesitation. Tianlan. I beg you, don't kill anymore, I beg you. Wang Yuetong, who was trapped in the vortex, suddenly knelt down and kowtowed to Li Tianlan. Countless blood and corpses were enough to make people despair. Wang Yuetong's forehead touched the ground hard, and her mind was blank. The killing continued, and it became more and more crazy. There was no pity in Li Tianlan's eyes. Instead, there was a touch of chilling anger, and he was extremely majestic. For the first time, he took a step down. The sword light suddenly became louder, and there seemed to be countless sword energy whistling between heaven and earth, as if it was about to destroy the entire stage of formidable person. Li Tianlan. Wang Yuetong stood up abruptly and screamed in despair. Her voice was sharp and pained, and it was filled with shocking hatred. For the first time, the sword light lit up in the cage-like vortex. Wang Yuetong raised her palm. The next second, Li Tianlan, Summer Solstice, and Lin Fengting. Everyone's face suddenly changed. The sword light on the stage of formidable person disappeared in an instant. Li Tianlan's figure violently knocked away the charging crowd. The sword formation of 13-story buildings immediately appeared beside Wang Yuetong. In a split second. It was a close call. The sword light in Wang Yuetong's hand gave off an extremely desperate light. There was no hesitation. Swish. In a slight but earth-shaking sound, Wang Yuetong stabbed her own heart with the sword. Countless streams of sword qi exploded. Summer Solstice and Lin Fengting rushed down. Everyone on the stage of formidable person rushed down. The 13-story building surrounded the vortex, stirring everything into a blur. Countless airwaves spread out and finally subsided. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. The vortex disappeared. The 13-story building slowly rotated around Li Tianlan and Wang Yuetong. In the center of the sword formation, Li Tianlan directly grasped the blade of the broken sword. But it was still half a second too late. The blade had already pierced into Wang Yuetong's chest and came out from her back. In the dead silence, Wang Yuetong looked at Li Tianlan quietly. She looked at Li Tianlan's palm and asked weakly, "Does it hurt?" Blood flowed down Li Tianlan's palm. He held the blade with a twisted face. Looking at Wang Yuetong, he couldn't say a word for a while. Wang Yuetong's figure swayed slightly and then she fell backward. Li Tianlan held her in his arms. The extremely gentle sword energy immediately sealed her wound. "How is Yuetong?" "Li Tianlan. How is Yuetong?" Summer Solstice's voice was almost screaming. "If anything happens to Yuetong, get out of here." Li Tianlan suddenly roared in rage. The sword formation of the 13-story building suddenly shook. The vast sword energy almost fell from the end of the sky. The few swords left in the 13-story buildings shone at the same time. The sword energy was dense and extremely fierce. Wang Yuetong lay quietly in Li Tianlan's arms. She opened her eyes and looked at the rainy sky, lost in thought. "I'm sorry," Li Tianlan looked down at her face. After a long time, he said in a very hoarse voice. Wang Yuetong did not respond. She could not stop Li Tianlan. Nor could she stop Mount Dibbing. She could only choose to kill herself. She didn't want to see it. She didn't want to see it. She didn't want to experience anything. How nice would it be to leave like this and never look back? Li Tianlan's body trembled slightly. In silence, his eyes turned red. Wang Yuetong aimed the sword directly at his heart. At this moment, he was extremely grateful to Dijiang. If Dijiang hadn't stimulated his dual wind and thunder veins and greatly increased his speed, the blade might have really penetrated Wang Yuetong's heart at that moment. He appeared in front of Wang Yuetong and didn't stop the sword. But at the most dangerous moment, he grasped the blade and finally made the blade deviate by an inch. Wang Yuetong's blade didn't pierce her heart, but the blade went through her chest. The huge sword energy caused unimaginable damage to her body in an instant. What would the final result be? Li Tianlan was not sure at all. Wang Yuetong moved laboriously and looked at Li Tianlan. "You're crying." She reached out and touched Li Tianlan's face. It was very gentle, but extremely weak. "Don't talk. Don't talk. I'm here. I'm here." Li Tianlan repeated incoherently, holding Wang Yuetong's hand tighter and tighter. Wang Yuetong coughed up a mouthful of blood, and her eyes gradually dimmed. "I can't guard Beihai, and I lost you. Tianlan, I'm so tired, it's okay." Li Tianlan said quickly, "It's okay. Don't close your eyes. Do you hear me? Don't close your eyes." Wang Yuetong smiled laboriously. "The Wang family of Beihai. Dongqing Rushi. I'll pay for it with my life, and give you an explanation." "Stop it. Look at me, Yuetong, look at me." Wang Yuetong tried to open her dim eyes and looked at Li Tianlan. In her sight, the man who was unforgettable to her was getting more and more blurry. Before her consciousness fell into the boundless darkness, her heart was filled with reluctance. Her eyes closed, little by little, slowly. "Let us in. I can save her. Li Tianlan, let me in." Summer Solstice's voice, which became a little distorted because of her eagerness, suddenly sounded. "I have half of immortality. I can save her." Li Tianlan seemed to wake up from a dream and waved his hands suddenly. The sword formation of the 13-story building was completely dispersed. Summer Solstice staggered to Wang Yuetong's side. Without hesitation, she crushed a pendant on her body and poured a small amount of liquid into Wang Yuetong's mouth. She touched Wang Yuetong's heartbeat. Wang Yuetong's heartbeat was extremely weak under the serious and fatal injury. Summer Solstice suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. The mistress of the Wang family of Beihai, who had been carefree for most of her life, grabbed her daughter's hand and burst into tears. "I'm going to take her away." Feeling Wang Yuetong's gradually stabilizing but extremely weak breath, Li Tianlan looked at Summer Solstice and said word by word, "I'll kill anyone who dares to stop me." "Tianlan, She's more suitable to stay in Mount Dibbing now. Lin Fengting came over and glanced at Wang Yuetong with a somewhat complicated look in his eyes. Here. Li Tianlan sneered. I don't trust this place. Are all the people of the Wang family of Beihai dead? Why do you want to make things difficult for a woman? She took the initiative to wait for you here. Summer Solstice shook her head. I didn't expect her to do this. You can imagine how disappointed she is in you. Li Tianlan's heart suddenly twitched. He said coldly, isn't she disappointed in you? Summer Solstice was silent for a long time. She looked at Wang Yuetong, who was in a coma, with gentle eyes and whispered, give her to me. If you want to go to the stage of formidable person, go ahead. Impossible. Li Tianlan said without hesitation. Although her injury has been stabilized by the eternal life technique, she really shouldn't move much. Tianlan, this is Yuedong's home after all. Where can you take her? The situation in Tiannan is chaotic. Emperor Dong's palace has just gained a firm foothold. But this is Mount Dibbing after all. She's safer here than anywhere else. Lin Fengting said slowly, of course, after she wakes up, if she still wants to go to you, I'll be responsible for sending her there. From now on, Beihai won't ask her to do anything. He looked at Li Tianlan. His voice was very soft but extremely tough. Such toughness was naturally directed at Summer Solstice. Summer Solstice glanced at Lin Fengting and said nothing, as if she acquiesced to this result. Li Tianlan did not speak. What? You don't trust me? Or you don't trust the Wang family of Beihai? If it's the latter, I'll live here during this period. You should be relieved, right? Lin Fengting said. Li Tianlan took a deep breath and loosened his grip on Wang Yuetong little by little. He looked down at Wang Yuetong. Wang Yuetong closed her eyes and breathed weakly. There was no trace of blood on her face. He suddenly felt a sharp pain in his heart. Summer Solstice took Wang Yuetong carefully. After what happened, I hope both of you can calm down and have a good talk. Lin Fengting said, Tianlan, Beihai is very sincere. They can give you the explanation you want. It's absolutely satisfactory. How about it? Li Tianlan glanced at Summer Solstice. Summer Solstice held Wang Yuetong and was silent for a long time. Then she said with difficulty, during this period, I'll personally go to Zhongyuan province to visit Minister Dongcheng. At this moment, there were corpses and blood everywhere on Mount Dibbing. Li Tianlan was under the stage of formidable person, overlooking the entire Mount Dibbing. He heard Summer Solstice's words. It seemed that he didn't want to delay Wang Yuedong's recuperation too much. After a moment of silence, he nodded expressionlessly. Summer Solstice smiled bitterly, feeling complicated. This moment was so humiliating for the entire Beihai. Li Tianlan was here. No matter what the result of the subsequent negotiations was, for them, it was a real alliance under the city. End of this chapter, bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 661. In the messy and hurried footsteps, Tang Shi and Song Ci, two young women who were likely to be the most influential in the Wang family of Beihai in the future, finally broke free from the crowd and rushed over. Wang Yuetong, who was in a coma, was so quiet that it was almost unreal. Even though her consciousness was immersed in the darkness, her eyebrows were still frowning. She looked a little haggard, helpless, and pitiful, which made people feel sorry for her. More and more people came over and looked at the scene with complicated expressions. How much despair and pain did Wang Yuetong have to feel in the vortex of the cage made of pure power for her to stab her heart without hesitation? Summer Solstice held Wang Yuetong in his arms. Li Tianlan held her hand. The killing intent and sword light that filled the sky had already disappeared, but the atmosphere in the field had become even more oppressive. Are you satisfied now? Song Ci's voice suddenly sounded in the silence. She stared at Li Tianlan, gritted her teeth, and said word by word, in order to show your so-called majesty and declare your invincibility to the world, Yuetong almost died here. You destroyed Mount Dibbing and your own woman. Are you satisfied with this result? Li Tianlan, Your Highness. Silence. Among the core members of the Wang family of Beihai who were gradually approaching, someone reached out and pulled Song Ci. Song Ci did not speak. She just looked at Li Tianlan with a cold smile. Li Tianlan finally raised his head slowly. He held Wang Yuedong's hand without any expression on his face. Do you want to die? He looked at Song Ci and asked in a cold voice. If you want to kill me, no one here can stop you. I don't want to die, but that doesn't mean I have to endure what I want to say. Song Ci sneered and looked into Li Tianlan's eyes. I want to ask you now, are you satisfied? Indeed, you don't have to hold it in, but that's all you can say. Li Tianlan nodded. What were you doing when Dijiang was defeated? What were you doing when Yuetong attacked? He pointed at the stage of formidable person in front of him. You are all hiding behind that rock, and now you ask me if I am satisfied? I'm not satisfied. I'll only be satisfied when people like you are dead. Song Ci's face turned red. She wanted to say something but hesitated. There was very little shame in her eyes, only a touch of helplessness, not knowing whether it was sadness or joy. Tianlan. Lin Fengting said calmly, she's pregnant. Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows. Song Ci was stunned and looked at Lin Fengting. How did you know? Song Ci was pregnant when she was with Wang Xingxiao before the final maneuver of the two academies, but she didn't find out at that time. In the final maneuver, she was also seriously injured by Li Tianlan. Since then, her body had been a little weak, and she had been recuperating recently. Otherwise, given her character, she would have stood in front of Li Tianlan even if she knew she would die. The problem was that only Wang Xingxiao, Summer Solstice, and Wang Tianzong knew about it. How did Lin Fengting know? Lin Fengting didn't answer the question and just sighed softly. Song Ci's talent and strength were both extremely good, but because she was pregnant, her injuries had yet to heal, so she could not fight. Wang Xingxiao's real fiancé, Tang Shi, did not know martial arts. Wang Xingxiao was still in Eastern Europe. Dijiang was defeated by Li Tianlan. It was not that there were no other young talents in Beihai province, but Li Tianlan had fought all the way through Beihai. How many of them could stand here? In the end, Wang Yuetong was the only one standing in front of Li Tianlan. As for the older generation, Lin Fengting looked at the crowd around him and smiled with some mockery. He was very disappointed with such a Beihai, and he believed that Li Tianlan was the same. When Li Tianlan walked up Mount Dibbing, it was Dijiang who stood in front of him. Dijiang's surname was not Wang. When Li Tianlan was about to set foot on Xianyuan stage, it was Wang Yuetong who stood in front of him. She was alone. On the stage of formidable person, there was a river of blood and countless corpses, but none of them belonged to the important figures of the Wang family of Beihai. Such a Beihai. In particular, Wang Yuedong's injury at this time would only make Li Tianlan more angry at such a Beihai. But Wang Yuedong's injury also made Li Tianlan really calm down. At least this was the result that Lin Fengting hoped to see. All right. Summer Solstice's voice suddenly sounded. I'll find a place to settle Yuetong. There are some things that we can talk about when I come back. Li Tianlan was expressionless and said nothing. Summer Solstice turned around and left without looking at Li Tianlan. The moment those soft and slender hands left Li Tianlan's, he subconsciously wanted to, this chapter is not over. Please turn the page. He held tightly, but finally let go. Wang Yuedong's palms were soft and delicate, but extremely cold. He watched Summer Solstice's back disappear into the night and wind and rain, remaining silent for a long time. You're sorry for her. You owe her. Song Ci said word by word. You're right. Li Tianlan said blandly, I owe her, but Beihai also owes her. Song Ci seemed to want to say more. But Li Tianlan had lost all his patience. He raised his palms. The surrounding space suddenly trembled for a moment. A huge whirlpool spun rapidly, pushing Song Si and all the people around her out. Li Tianlan quietly looked at the direction where summer solstice's figure disappeared and said nothing. Lin Fengting stood beside Li Tianlan and said nothing. Will she forgive me? Li Tianlan suddenly asked in a low voice. Lin Fengting sat down beside Li Tianlan. After a moment of silence, he said softly, in fact, you know that she didn't blame you at all. It depends on whether you can forgive yourself. Li Tianlan lowered his head and did not speak for a long time. He was thinking about Dongqing Rushi and Wang Yuetong. The two figures kept alternating in his mind. In silence, the muscles on his face kept trembling. I don't know if I did something wrong. His voice was a little hoarse. The sword light that pierced his chest was decisive and unyielding. The figure lying on the hospital bed was silent and pale. In the wind and rain, Li Tianlan sat on the ground, a little painful and a little lonely. I feel sorry for her. Lin Fengting sighed and patted Li Tianlan's shoulder without saying anything. Li Tianlan quietly looked at Mount Dibing. From Qiushui to Xingzhou. From south to north. He fought through the entire Beihai province and the 7 sword-holding families. Mount Dibing was already in ruins. Now the stage of formidable person was right in front of him, and no one could stop him. But somehow, Li Tianlan was a little dispirited and even depressed. I'm disappointed in such a Beihai. He said softly. After a pause, he continued, no, such a Beihai is good. But I'm disappointed in such a Wang family. In such a Beihai, there was Dijiang who tried his best to stop him, the sword-holding families who did not change their original intentions, Tang Shi and Song Si, Wang Yuetong, Huang Fu Qiushui, Summer Solstice, and countless people who were willing to die for the stage of formidable person. Countless of them were guarding this holy land. But the core figures of the Wang family of Beihai who should guard here the most didn't even speak since he came here, let alone say anything. He was extremely disappointed with such silence. Big trees have dead branches. Lin Fengting was silent for a while. He thought of everything Li Tianlan saw along the way on Mount Dibing. Among the core figures of the Wang family of Beihai, there were people who dared to stand up. But when countless people wanted to stand up, there were also many people who pulled them forward. That was an extremely subtle entanglement. Some people wanted to enter. Some people wanted to retreat. Some people wanted to be heroes. Some people were cowards. After all, this was no longer the Wang family of Beihai that was now recorded in the history of Zhongzhou state. I'm also disappointed in such a Wang family. Lin Fengting chuckled. I think Tianzong will be even more disappointed. He can't absolve himself from the blame for the Wang family's current situation. What's there to be disappointed about? Li Tianlan said coldly. These are related to him, but not the main ones. Lin Fengting said calmly, any force will encounter such problems, and in the face of such problems, the Wang family of Beihai is extremely experienced. Let's wait and see. When Tianzong gets his injury under control, it's time for the Wang family of Beihai to start. Start what? Wang Tianzong asked. Start reshuffling. Lin Fengting said blandly, such things have happened many times in the history of the Wang family of Beihai. They either rise from the ashes or begin to decline. Li Tianlan thought quietly for more than 10 minutes before saying, Yuetong shouldn't stay in Beihai. I'll take her away. If she wants to, I have no problem with that. Summer Solstice's voice sounded not far away. The vortex of power around Li Tianlan and Lin Fengting was still spinning. Summer Solstice's expression was a little, this chapter is not over. Please turn the page. Haggard and pale. She stretched out her hand and waved. She walked in from outside the vortex quietly. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes and didn't say anything. If she wants to go to Tiannan, I won't stop her. Summer Solstice looked at Li Tianlan and was silent for a while. Then she said, now we should have a good talk. Li Tianlan looked at summer solstice and twitched the corner of his mouth. The messy wind and rain were still going on. All the core members of the Wang family of Beihai were isolated outside the vortex of power. In the blurry scene, people could only see summer solstice talking to Li Tianlan seriously. Different people had different moods. Some people felt humiliated. Some people felt lucky. That was the Wang family today. The night was getting darker. Darkness. Dawn. 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 The wind and rain were still going on. After talking all night, Li Tianlan slowly stood up. The vortex that lasted all night disappeared. In the messy wind and rain, Li Tianlan looked at summer solstice and the stage of formidable person in Beihai. He said blandly, "It's over." No one knew what summer solstice and Li Tianlan talked about that night. But the young Dong Huang finally chose to stop in front of the stage of formidable person. The blood on the stage of formidable person was washed by the rain and flowed on Mount Dibing. Under the wind and rain, the stone of formidable person, carved with countless glories and pasts, stood there quietly, gazing at everything. Li Tianlan slowly turned around and walked back. His figure was getting fainter and fainter. Summer solstice stood quietly and watched Li Tianlan's figure getting farther and farther away. A faintly discernible aura appeared on Mount Dibing without any warning. The crazy wind and rain seemed to be much smaller in an instant. Li Tianlan's figure paused. Lin Fengting and Summer Solstice looked at the side of the stage of formidable person almost at the same time. That was the place where the wounded were temporarily placed on Mount Dibing. And that position. It was the position of Dijiang. Countless air vibrated slightly in the air. With a powerful force, it gathered crazily toward Dijiang in an instant. Lin Fengting raised his eyebrows and said nothing. Summer Solstice was a little surprised and a little regretful. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes and watched this scene quietly. Countless surging forces stirred the air and finally turned into an extremely condensed domain. It broke through. When everything was completely over, Dijiang, who was defeated by Li Tianlan, officially stepped into the invincible realm in absolute humiliation. After the disappearance of Sword Emperor, he was the second new invincible realm expert of the Wang family of Beihai. Li Tianlan smiled. He didn't take advantage of Dijiang's serious injury to kill this threat. He just glanced at it casually and said calmly, "When your injury is healed, come to Tiannan to find me. I will give you a chance to challenge me." Confident, strong, invincible, and condescending. His figure stepped into the sky and never looked back. The glimmer of the morning sun reflected his figure that was getting higher and higher. At this moment, everyone on Mount Dibing was looking up at the chosen one who had completely risen. Li Tianlan's figure moved forward. He waved his palm in the air. In an instant, an incomparably bright light bloomed from his hand. That light was so cold, so bright, and so dazzling. The shining silver light swallowed the morning sun, shone on Mount Dibing, the stage of formidable person, and the surging North Sea. It was as cold as the moon, but with endless sharpness. Summer Solstice's palm moved, but she finally chose to be silent. People looked at Li Tianlan, who was getting higher and higher, and at the silver light that was falling gradually. The moon-like sharpness crossed North Sea, crossed the steps of the stage of formidable person, and finally fell on the top of the stone of formidable person with incomparable sharpness. The metal pierced into the rock. With a slight sound, the silver long sword was directly inserted above the stone of formidable person, trembling in the morning sun. Li Tianlan's figure had disappeared in the air. But the long sword shining with a cold luster was still facing the wind and rain, looking down at Mount Dibing. The 13th floor. The silver moon sword. From the moment Li Tianlan officially stepped into North Sea, everything seemed to have been predestined. Tianguang Soul Lock Platform. The silver moon fell into North Sea. End of this chapter, bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 662. Until Li Tianlan left for a long time, no one under the stage of formidable person said a word. Too many things happened on Mount Dibing that day. Mount Dibing was reduced to ruins. Dijiang suffered a crushing defeat, but he broke through to the invincible realm. Wang Yuetong broke with Li Tianlan. Blood flowed like a river on the stage of Formidable Person. The silver moon fell on North Sea. The light of dawn grew brighter and brighter. The wind and rain never stopped over Xingzhou. The crazy rain covered the entire Beihai province, as if it was constantly destroying the backbone of Beihai province. Summer Solstice raised her head and looked at the direction where Li Tianlan disappeared. She was silent for a long time. The sword light had disappeared. Mount Dibing ushered in the day. Li Tianlan had really left. Everything was completely over. Summer Solstice took a deep breath, feeling a little tired. Clean up. She paused, looked at the large ruins around her, and said in a low voice, try to restore Mount Dibing to its original state as soon as possible. Light footsteps sounded behind Summer Solstice. Wang Qinglei walked over slowly, with no expression on his face. Everyone noticed this scene. The tense atmosphere of the Wang family of Beihai had disappeared, but an extremely subtle atmosphere was constantly spreading. Wang Qinglei's figure separated the crowd and came to Summer Solstice. Summer Solstice looked at him, her eyes calm. When has the Wang family of Beihai ever been so aggrieved? Wang Qinglei looked at Summer Solstice with no expression on his face, and his voice was cold. Denounce me? Everyone's heart shook violently. The wind and rain filled the world. At this moment, there seemed to be a clear tearing sound coming from inside the Wang family of Beihai. The cracks that had always been hidden under the undercurrent seemed to instantly expand and become extremely ferocious and obvious. That's right. Another voice sounded abruptly. The Wang family of Beihai has never been humiliated like this for hundreds of years. A middle-aged man with a somewhat gloomy expression stood out and stood behind Wang Qinglei. He was the patriarch of a branch of the Wang family of Beihai. He was very close to Wang Qinglei and could be said to be Wang Qinglei's real confidant. In the vast Beihai province, Wang Qinglei didn't have much influence among the 7 sword-holding families, but he had many supporters among the many branches of the Wang family of Beihai, and the one in front of him was one of them. When Li Tianlan was killing on the stage of Formidable Person, he had been standing at the back of the crowd. Now that Li Tianlan had left, he finally remembered his mission and remembered that this was Mount Dibing, the holy land that the Wang family of Beihai had guarded for hundreds of years. The silver moon sword was stabbed into the top of the stone of Formidable Person, gently trembling in the wind and rain. The middle-aged man with a gloomy face suddenly pointed in that direction. For hundreds of years, no one has dared to stick a weapon on the stone of Formidable Person so arrogantly. Who does Li Tianlan think he is? Does he deserve it? Without any hesitation, his figure suddenly soared into the sky, heading straight for the stone of Formidable Person. Countless thunderbolts circled around his body. At this moment, he looked incomparably brave. If none of you dare to move, I'll do it. He felt that his voice and posture were heroic. At this moment, he felt that he was the hero of the Wang family of Beihai. He stretched out his hand, wanting to pull out the silver moon that had brought endless humiliation to the Wang family of Beihai. Wang Qinglei frowned. Summer Solstice said nothing, but there was some mockery in her eyes. Everyone was watching this scene. The bright thunderbolt completely wrapped the middle-aged man's body. He stretched out his hand and fell on the hilt of the silver moon. Li Tianlan had already left. The hilt of the silver moon suddenly trembled. In an instant. The sword. The bright and cold sword light covered the stage of Formidable Person. It flashed for a moment. The thunderbolt disappeared. The middle-aged man who felt that he was very brave also disappeared. The blood mist fell all over the sky, and then was washed away by the wind and rain. The corner of Lin Fengting's mouth moved, but he didn't say anything. He probably called him an idiot in his heart. Xianyuan Feng was a truly conscious magic weapon. Although he was not a human being, he could already be regarded as a life. The silver moon was a part of Xianyuan Feng. Tonight, The silver moon absorbed the energy of the devil troop, and its spirituality was almost at its peak. At this moment, the silver moon did not have Li Tianlan's sword intent. It was completely the sword intent of the sword. If one wanted to pull out the sword, one had to have the strength. There was a dead silence under the stage of Formidable Person. Everyone was looking at the silver moon on the stone of Formidable Person, and their hearts were extremely cold. Summer Solstice turned to look at Wang Qinglei, and said calmly, "It's only temporary." The aggressive Wang Qinglei seemed to be stunned by the scene of the silver moon sword. He raised his finger and was silent for a long time, but he didn't say anything in the end. The field of power in the air that covered a radius of dozens of meters was completely silent. Wang Qinglei hesitated for a moment, and then walked toward Dijiang. Dijiang was lying in a half-collapsed palace, covered in blood, and quietly looking at the roof. He broke through to the invincible realm when he was seriously injured. After the breakthrough, his injuries didn't get better. Instead, because of the sudden increase in strength during the breakthrough, his injuries became more serious. He lay there, motionless, like a statue. He didn't even react when Wang Qinglei and Summer Solstice came in. At this moment, no one knew what he was thinking. But it was something that many people wanted to know. Wang Qinglei walked to Dijiang and squinted at him. After a long time, he asked, "What did Li Tianlan say to you in the end?" Many people were paying attention to Dijiang's next answer. Only Summer Solstice turned her head and looked into the distance through the half-collapsed palace. In the light of dawn, there seemed to be a delicate water drop falling through the wind and rain. Summer Solstice looked at it quietly for a long time. Finally, Dijiang's voice sounded. He told the truth, he didn't say anything. Wang Qinglei squinted and smiled. He didn't believe Dijiang. Not at all. At that moment, countless people looked at Dijiang with cold eyes. Song Xiai finally let out a long sigh of relief after she carefully treated the wound and saw that the bleeding had completely stopped. Wang Yuedong's breath had calmed down, but her face was still extremely pale and haggard. Song Xiai felt sorry for her and tidied her hair. Looking at her face, she couldn't say anything for a while. "How is she?" Tang Shi asked, standing aside. "She's fine now." Song Xiai thought for a moment and said, "Yuetong was seriously injured, but now, she should be fine." Wang Yuedong's sword that pierced into her heart was grabbed by Li Tianlan. Although it was shifted by an inch, the sword energy that entered her body also caused fatal injuries to her body. But Summer Solstice still had half of immortality, which was enough to stabilize Wang Yuedong's condition in the shortest time. If there are no accidents, she should wake up in a few days. Song Xiai said. Tang Shi was in a trance. Compared with Song Xiai, who didn't appear in front of people for a long time, Wang Yuetong actually had a better relationship with Tang Shi. Because of this, thinking of the sword that Wang Yuetong resolutely pierced into her chest, Tang Shi felt more uncomfortable. She felt uncomfortable. They were now in the most remote corner of Mount Dibing. Few people came here on weekdays, but there was also a decorative palace here. It was very small, but now it had become one of the few well-preserved enemies in Mount Dibing. Sitting here, far away from the stage of Formidable Person, everything outside the room seemed to have nothing to do with them. Tang Shi sat down next to Wang Yuetong and carefully held her cold palm. After a long time, she whispered, "What will she do in the future?" She would wake up eventually. But what would happen after she woke up? Would she stay here, suffer lovesickness and loneliness, become enemies with Li Tianlan, and finally turn all the love into hatred? Or would she let go of everything today and return to Li Tianlan? Song Xiai also fell silent. She didn't know how to answer this question. It was impossible for Wang Yuetong to let go of Beihai and Li Tianlan. For Wang Yuetong, it might be easier not to wake up than to wake up, right? After all, she still loves the wrong person. Song Xiai whispered. There is no right or wrong. Tang Shi shook her head. Since she has fallen in love, it is right. If there is anything wrong, it is the past grievances that are wrong. Song Si still wanted to say something, but she suddenly turned her head. Her body tightened, and her face became extremely dignified in an instant. An extremely soft and gentle force seemed to approach the palace, which was barely intact, and shrouded the whole palace. In Song Si's sight, a very delicate water droplet went through the window. It was so delicate and perfect, looking for something with a little confused consciousness. Finally, it found its target and slowly fell on Wang Yuedong's chest. Song Si looked at it quietly and didn't speak for a long time. The little thing that looked like a water droplet was extremely delicate. It was stuck to Wang Yuedong's chest like a beautiful pendant. What is it? Tang Shi stretched out her hand in surprise, as if she wanted to touch it. It's so beautiful. Don't move. Song Si held Tang Shi's hand. She was Wang Xingxiao's woman, and Tang Shi was also Wang Xingxiao's woman. The two could be said to be rivals in love, but their relationship was not bad. Of course, it was not good either. Strictly speaking, they were not very familiar with each other. But no matter what, she could not watch Tang Shi be swallowed by danger. Tang Shi didn't know martial arts, so she thought this little thing was beautiful. But in Song Si's perception, this little thing that was as delicate as a water droplet had the power to destroy the whole palace in an instant. Under that delicate appearance, she felt all the sword intent that was restrained to the extreme. This is a sword. Song Si whispered, the sword in the 13th floor. The 13th floor. The heartbreaking sword. Song Si didn't know the name of this sword, but now it didn't matter at all. This was Li Tianlan's love for Wang Yuetong. Song Si looked at Wang Yuedong's face and laughed at herself. Li Tianlan was really good to Wang Yuetong. But this heartbreaking sword had already explained Li Tianlan's attitude. Li Tianlan did not show mercy to the Wang family of Beihai. His only concession might be that he didn't destroy the stage of formidable person. But the silver moon fell into Beihai, and the sharp sword edge had been inserted into the stone of formidable person. Song Si paid more attention to the negotiation between summer solstice and Li Tianlan. How much did the Wang family of Beihai have to pay to calm Li Tianlan's anger for everything that happened today? And what did Wang Yuetong get? She looked at her pale face and sighed softly. I still love the wrong person.